Welcome back to episode 82 of the Owl Triangle podcast. It's me, Ian O'Neill, with Andy Stevenson and Caoilte Barra, as always. And what is a pretty damn big week in the world of Irish mixed martial arts, with Cage Warriors 188 right around the corner this Saturday night in the RDS Arena in Dublin. Big fight card ahead, steeped with Irish talent, steeped with upcoming talent, steeped with already set in stone talent in the world of Irish mixed martial arts, as James Sheehan headlines the card in a welterweight championship fight against Justin Burlinson. We obviously heard from James last week on the podcast. We have an array of guests this week on the podcast that are going to talk to us about their fights. Max Lally, Ciaran Brady and Alexander O'Sullivan all speak to us ahead of their fights Saturday night. Andy and Caoilte are here, as I said just a couple of seconds ago. Andy, it is a big week for Irish mixed martial arts. We have a trio of guests, and I think, we could have probably done 6 or 7 episodes of the Owl Triangle in the build up to here, because we have so much talent on the card. It was hard to pick out who we wanted to speak to. But, what we are going to do, we'll break down the card from top to tail. We'll focus mainly this episode on the Cage Warriors card, but it's shaping up to be a momentous night of Irish mixed martial arts, a special occasion. As it's getting closer, you can feel the anticipation building. And, the RDS could be setting the stage for a really special and historic night in Irish mixed martial arts on Saturday night.
Yeah, I think it's a very exciting, I would say, this coming card, but an exciting number of weeks for Irish MMA. Of course, the focus of this episode will be on Cage Warriors, Dublin Cage Warriors 188, as you mentioned. But additionally, with PFL Belfast coming up in just 2 weeks after the Cage Warriors card, it's going to be a hectic, a helter-skelter number of weeks in Irish MMA. But there's so many, there's a lot of change. I feel like there's a lot of change coming. We talk with Max Lally later on in the show, and he gives his thoughts on kind of the change and the prospects that are coming through. There's so many fighters on this Cage Warriors card. There are so many prospects on this Cage Warriors card. But additionally, there are other kind of larger elements at play, I suppose, where we have SBG back in Cage Warriors. And I'm not going to say SBG exiting Bellator/PFL, but a new era for PFL where they're doing a show up in Belfast that is predominantly not SBG fighters. There's a couple on there, but the Irish MMA is shifting, and I think it's shifting for the better, where we're not having just these big shows that are just geared towards a particular gym or a particular subset of gyms, except for one gym, and now it's just kind of everyone's on every card, and we're going to see the new era. It's this. We're constantly talking about a new era, but this is kind of like a new era.
The terminology that I'm always hesitating to use is the next wave. Because we say it, the next wave. But for maybe lack of a better term, it's kind of like with the talent that's on this Cage Warriors card and coming up, obviously, like you said, in the PFL card. It does seem to be kind of like, a next stage in the prospects that are coming through, if that makes sense.
Do you know what I'll say? And I'm just kind of thinking off the cuff here, but this feels to me like the post-McGregor era. And I mean that it's been a long time since he's been a true active fighter, in the sense of him actively competing on a regular basis. But with everything that's been going on, what I mentioned there about the SBG stuff, they're back in Cage Warriors. It's no longer kind of like an SBG controlled show in Bellator PFL, and now we're moving to an era where there's obviously all the stuff with McGregor and Paul Hughes, and then everything that's going on, whatever's going on outside the cage for him right now, which is irrelevant to what we're talking about here. But it's a new dawn, I would say, where we're moving on from that era, which there was many great things about it, but there were also negatives to it too.
One of the great things is that he probably, he would have inspired a lot of the fighters that we're going to talk about and talk to in this episode of the Owl Triangle. But definitely, your point definitely stands. It's definitely, we need to head in a direction for Irish mixed martial arts, in a direction that's heading away from Conor McGregor and his former influence on Irish mixed martial arts and on the sport in general, in terms of, these new young and up and coming talents, the attention needs to be focused on them and their rise up through the sport now. And there's many great stories to be told, Andy. I think that's kind of the road you're going down, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I mean. The reason why I'm saying it is like the Bellator era, where it was all SBG on the show. And again, this is not because like there's loads of fighters in SBG that it's like it's not their fault that they got opportunities, and it's also like to an extent like I don't blame John Kavanagh for giving his fighters opportunities. That makes sense, but like it was all kind of framed and based off the back of Conor McGregor's success, and then like the promotions trying to just like latch onto that and recreate that, and it just didn't, like that format just did not work. And so now it's more a well-rounded opportunities for all era where hopefully it's not just promotions just trying to put on a show, grabbing Irish fighters, putting them on there and doing absolutely anything that they can do to associate them with Conor McGregor. Those days, I hope, are gone, and I hope that we begin starting to tell the stories of the likes of the Ciaran Bradys, who you'll hear from later on, the likes of the Max Lallys, the Corey McLaughlins, the whoever you have it that are coming up on these shows, the Solomon King Simons. There's so many fighters with so many amazing stories. The Eimear Darcy, who's fighting on this upcoming show, and I think that it's time that they are given the true I don't know,
platform for success. It's a platform for success that they deserve.
Let's just focus on them. Let's just focus on what unfolds over the next while in Irish MMA, and just have it be about these new stories, which are different, and that's okay. And it's, you know, not going to get the promotions maybe as many clicks or the media outlets as many clicks in the immediate, but there's plenty of fun stories to be told. There's plenty of journeys to go on with these fighters, and there's bags of talent in the country up and down the gym, including, and because I'm always hesitant to, like, I feel like I'm like shitting on SBG when I'm not trying to, because there's plenty of fucking talent there too. But it's more just to, you know, have not everything be framed in that, and for me to stop talking about like this, you know, an SBG show. Why is there no SBG fighters on it? We're at a good space now where it's like the level playing field, and now it's just right. Everyone kumbaya. Let's go talk about the fights and the stories that come out of them.
Yeah, and I think Caoilte, you know, that's kind of, you know, where we've set the table here in terms of what we've talked about here is a fresh start, a new start, and that's what Cage Warriors 188 is. Looking through the card, we see fighters from SBG Charlestown, SBG Nace, Team Torres, CMAC, Team Rhino, FAI, you know, SBG HQ. I mean, you know, I'm definitely going to forget a few as well, but, you know, it kind of showcases what we've been kind of talking about in the start of this podcast, is that we're seeing talent that is spread out across many, many gyms across the country right now, and it's all going to be here for us in one place on Saturday night, and there's plenty of stories and plenty of fighters to talk about. How do you kind of encapsulate what Cage Warriors 188 means for Irish mixed martial arts in this moment?
Yeah, it's like the tides turn a little bit, because we're kind of seeing all the pieces coming together, and all the gyms are getting opportunities. It's equal opportunity across the board now, and Cage Warriors are giving a platform, putting on a massive show. For a home crowd, you know, all this, it's significant. It's a massive one for Irish MMA, and it's got all the potential to be, and you could say this before every show, where they all have potential to be historic and kind of be one of these big moments these big shows that'll never be forgotten. Because let's be real, some of the Bellator shows, they all had that potential, but so they just kind of blurred into one after a while.
They fizzled out after a little while too, and in certain ways, Caoilte wouldn't be right in saying the fact that we haven't had a big show like, you know, Bellator or PFL coming in for a little spell. It's kind of left the fans maybe wanting a little bit more. So this show is kind of coming at the perfect time in certain ways.
That's it, yeah, and it is. You're right in saying it's the perfect time, and I'm gonna rob it from Max Lally, because he said it perfectly, and it's stuck with me since he said it. And for people listening, you'll hear it from Max later. But it's like the Bama card. Like the Bama cards that were put on when they first came. I don't know. I was much younger at the time. I was still probably 17, 18. The buzz and the feel that it gives you and the excitement that you have about Irish MMA and just about these type of cards, it's something else. And this card brings it, is the best way of putting it for me, because it's brilliant. And it could be monumentous in the lore of Irish MMA that is ongoing, and just, incredible.
When you're looking at the card from top to tail, Andy, in terms of stories, narratives, everything like that, there could be plenty of narratives and stories that we'll be able to pull from this card. But ahead of the card, obviously, looking no further than the main event to start us off, maybe. Such a huge moment for James Sheehan, a guy who won the title in the same arena in the RDS, spoke with us last week about that, the trials and tribulations that he's had to face since winning the belt. Obviously, was supposed to come back, defend his title a little bit sooner than he is right now. Got an injury, had to fight through that, but he's been set up here with a tough opponent in Justin Burlinson, but also a platform to lead him into bigger and better things in his career as well with a win. It's a huge moment for James Sheehan coming in here, and it's a worthy fight to top the bill in the RDS on Saturday night.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I really feel like James Sheehan is coming into his own, both as a fighter, but also like having that ability to be like, you know what, it's my time now. Like he has taken the hard fights, he's taken the hard road, he's had his setbacks, he's had incredible moments where he is, just a year ago in the RDS won his title in emphatic fashion in a bloody war over 4 rounds, and now he goes in here and defends his title for the first time against a guy who we're well familiar with in Justin Burlinson. We've seen him in Cage Warriors. We've seen him going off, with that incredible war with Rhys McKee up in Belfast only a few years ago. And I spoke with Ian Machado Garry there, was it last week? And I asked him about James and training with him and what he thought about this fight. And he kind of said something to me that kind of made a bit of sense, where he's like, it's almost like it's like the Irish James Sheehan going in facing the English version of James Sheehan. And I expect it to be a fucking war here between Sheehan and Burlinson. And I think that rightly so, if James Sheehan can defend his title successfully here against Justin Burlinson, that's a big scalp to take in the Irish and UK scene. And I believe that he will have earned his right to go on to the UFC, or at the very least, which is crazy to say, but the contender, he's earned his right to go to the contender series, like as if he hasn't proved enough already. But like that's just the lay of the land, and I thought that when we spoke with him on the last episode, there is a little bit of a change. Like he's never going to be one who's going to be boisterous and blow his own trumpet and all that stuff, but there's a quiet confidence there to him where I think he's finally stepping out of his shell, rather, to be like, you know what, I deserve this. Now, obviously, big task ahead on Saturday night.
Yeah, huge task, and I agree with most of your assessment of the fight. I don't agree with most of it. I agree with all of your assessment of the fight, to be honest. I think it is going to be a grueling, tough fight. I think, for James, he has that in his locker. We've seen that in his last fight. Is now the time maybe to kind of not get involved in that? Easier said than done. I do think from a technical standpoint that James can, out technique and kind of, get that jab in Burlinson's face and cause problems with there. Obviously, Burlinson is going to be doing what he always does. He's going to be steaming forward and looking to turn this into a dogfight, because that's where he flourishes. So it's a fantastic fight to top the bill. Look at, obviously, James Webb in the co-main event, Caoilte. I feel, we have to give him a mention, obviously training in Team KF to Team KF captain, and has had a fantastic story over the last number of years as well, and, getting back up to the top of the light heavyweight division and winning that title as well, and winning it in such dramatic fashion. Kind of came in under this fight, coming in under the radar. It was announced, only a little while ago. He comes in and faces a tough Brazilian in John Allen, who's 18-9, and, we've seen some tough Brazilians come in. This could be an Ian Dean special here, and a good test for James Webb in the co-main event. Obviously, with those Irish connections, we'd have to give him a shout out as well.
Yeah, for sure. And look, you see a lot of the Brazilians being pulled in recently, and Samuel Silva did it against one of the Hardwicks there recently in the lightweight division, and as you mentioned, it could be an Indian special because they're unknowns, they're unknown quantities, and they can nearly make for the best fights. But the way James Webb has, like, I don't know, way he's kind of settled into that division is just incredible, and he's looked fantastic, and he's been in some wars. If he defends it now, it just adds to extra history that he's been creating inside Cage Warriors, and it'd be a massive moment for him as well, because he does, he trains out of Team KF captain, gets the opportunity to compete and co-headline a Dublin card, and he could be easily forgotten about in a card like that when it's full of Irish prospects. But no, a massive fight for him, and very much excited to see, even though I haven't a clue about the lad he's fighting, to be honest with you. It's just
he's fought in the UFC before, John Allen.
Has he?
Yeah. Like he's a veteran. This is James Webb's first time fighting in Ireland, I believe, isn't it? Too. I'm pretty sure he was I remember he was at the Cage Warriors 110 card in Cork because Sean Sheehan was posing with his belt, but I think he was there as a teammate and fan that night.
This is Sean's one and only time as Cage Warriors welterweight champion, or was it middleweight champion?
Middleweight champion. But again, like similar to James Sheehan, like he's had his ups and downs. He's won the belt, he's lost the belt, he's won a new belt. Who's to say that maybe is he too old for the UFC to look at him? But
you might think that, but this is a UFC caliber fight here in the co-main event. You know what I mean? Like, you're right. Like, he what's his guy's name? John Allen. He fought Dustin Jacoby only 2 fights ago in the UFC. So, I mean, if there's a fight that is going to tell you if you're UFC ready or not, this is the one. This is the one for James Webb. But, I wanted to kind of start off the chit-chat about the card, about the more established professionals on the card. We do have a lot of up-and-coming prospects on the card as well, and I think now would be the right time to go over and speak to one of them, and that would be Alexander O'Sullivan, who's taken such a long layoff in between fights, and he gets into the reason why in this interview as well. So let's head on over there. Let's talk to Alex about his time away and his fight coming up on the Cage Warriors 188 fight, an All-Ireland affair. Andy Stevenson super happy about this against Dara Toman. Let's head on over to Alex and see what he has to say about that fight.
Joining us now on this fine Easter Sunday is Alexander O'Sullivan ahead of a big fight on his return to Cage Warriors. Alexander, how are you getting on? A bit of a trek up and down the country today?
No, I'm just back from a trip down to Cashel from Dublin there to see the Rock of Cashel. I like to visit like ancient Irish sites and that kind of thing, just to lock in and to kind of feed off the energy the weekend before fights. It's sort of a tradition I've had, so I decided to visit Cashel today. It's a Christian site, so because Easter Sunday it felt like the place to go,
Definitely,
it was cool.
It's a bit different to most people's Easter Sunday. I've got a lot of Easter eggs over next to us here now, but I imagine you've got them waiting.
I've been waiting, exactly. Yeah, my Easter Sunday is next Sunday when it comes to the Easter eggs. Yeah, I have a good feel, to be honest. I'm ready to attack them next Sunday. I can't wait, to be honest.
Well, I'll be your go-to one. I'll be your go-to one, Alex. Which one do you go to first?
I'm a huge peanut butter enthusiast, so I'm a Reese's fan. Reese's is my favorite chocolate, so I have 2 Reese's Easter eggs eyeing me up, to be honest. At the moment that I can't touch, but like that, it's all good. It's all part of the game, and I'm gonna absolutely enjoy them. Next Sunday, they're gonna taste 10 times better, than they would now. So that's the way to look at it. That's the way I look at it.
Unreal, I love it. And look, it's been it's been a long time since seen you in the cage, and next weekend, we're looking forward to it. But it's what's been happening with you? Because obviously, we've not seen you since 2023 now, I think it's been, and it's been a bit of a long stretch off for you, and you're not one for the inactivity, really.
Yeah, 100%. So this fight's exactly, it's 3 days short of exactly 2 years. So I fought on Cage Warriors Dublin on April 29th, 2023, and now it's going to be April 26th, 2025. So just about 2 years out of the cage, and it is one of the longer times I've been out of the cage, to be honest. Like, obviously having the 30 amateur fights and stuff, I was fighting very consistently. and I wanted it to be the same at pro, but it just wasn't to be the way, you know. I had another fight booked for October 2023. Was ready to rock, and a few weeks out, I had an MRI scan that I would have just, you know, considered, customary. Like I've done them, I would have done 4 or so up to that point, no issues, and then this one came back and said I had a stroke. So like a bleed in the brain. So that put the doctors onto me, you know, and they said I still might be able to fight and that kind of thing. So I continued training, and then eventually they pulled me on fight week. They just said they can't allow me to fight having had a stroke, you know. And I think they were, I don't know, I think they were just giving me the benefit of the doubt, to be honest. But to be honest, I don't think they were ever going to let me fight. So it ended up being pulled only a few days out, which was, you know, heartbreaking stuff, to be honest. And then credit to the doctors, they ran all the tests to try and find out why, and they ended up finding I had a hole in my heart, and they decided it probably came from there. They said I was probably born with it, but I never knew. So then they put me on aspirin and stuff for a few months, and if you're on aspirin, you can't train, you can't spar at all. So I was on I couldn't spar for say half of 2024 and the end of 2023 while I was on that drug, to basically just minimises the chance of another stroke. So that kept me out of training. So I was focusing on coaching, and we had a lot of successes as a gym there anyway. So it wasn't like I was out of the gym, but I wasn't able to train properly. I wasn't able to fight. So when they gave me the all clear there again, basically they said they didn't have to do the surgery because the hole was very small, and I had the agency as a 25-year-old man to say that I don't want it and I'm ready to fight again. I want to fight again. So having done 2 more MRIs with no more issues in the brain, I've been cleared. So I'm ready to rock now next week, and it's really exciting, you know. At one point I thought I might not be fighting again. You know, the doctors said, you know, maybe I couldn't fight again, with the stroke and the hole and the heart and everything. So it's just great to be here, to be honest, and I'm grateful for getting this second chance to go again, you know.
Of course, it's amazing that you've been able to fight again and everything, but just the roller coaster emotions that you probably must have gone through when you're getting told this. Like, what was that like for you, just generally? Because this isn't obviously something that just impacts your career; it impacts your life as well. What was that like for you?
It was kind of it was unbelievable, to be honest. I felt fine, to be honest. I felt grand, and to be told that this was all this, you know, things were possibly wrong with me, you know. Well, like I had the stroke and all, and that definitely happened. And then I did have a hole in my heart. They did the test, and then I had to wear a heart monitor for a week. So I did like a week's training, and then like up in the gym wearing this like silly thing around my neck that was connected to my heart and all. So that was all kind of a new experience for me, and it was tough, you know. It was tough because I really felt I had a lot of momentum behind me when it came to training and fighting. So to kind of have to cut that after 2 wins within the first minute of my 2 pro fights, and then to be ready to rock in my 3rd fight, and then just be told that's it, you're probably going to fight again, but never mind, fight again. You know, you have to not spar, you can't train hard, you have to wear like wires on your chest and all and everything. It just came out of the blue a little bit for me. I was more shocked, to be honest, than anything else. After like the initial kind of shock, you know, kind of wore off, I said to myself, well, okay, look, I'm coaching anyway. I want to be a coach. You know, I want to, when I retire from fighting, I'm going to coach. So maybe it's just happening a little bit earlier, you know. So that was kind of my thought process that kept me sane, kind of that kept me from falling into despair a little bit, you know. But I enjoy coaching, and like I say, I'm, you know, really proud of my students, and I'm happy to coach them and to train with them. We had a great 2024 when it came to that way. So that's what kept me upbeat, you know. Then I suppose, like, when I was able to get the all clear, like kind of to fight again, you know, that was an incredible experience as well. I kind of had to kick myself back into gear because I had kind of stepped back from fighting. Like I said, I couldn't spar or do anything either, so kicking myself back into that fight mode was important. And I think that was the reason I went to Bangtao. That was the reason I spent 6 weeks over in Thailand to spar different bodies and to train over there, just to kind of to get those hard rounds in and get back into that fighting mindset. I had stayed competitive as well because like I could still grapple. So I was grappling in the gym, despite not being able to spar with any headshots or anything. I continued grappling, so I had 5 grappling tournaments over 2024 as well. So I wasn't completely sidelined, if you know what I mean. I kept the training up, and I kept up my strength conditioning with Gaz Hickey, so that's why I've moved up to featherweight. We've put on muscle mass, and we've been doing the like the in-body scanner test to check like muscle growth and all these kind of things, and I've steadily put on muscle over that time as I wanted to do, and I feel featherweight is the way to go. There's it's always been on my mind. Perhaps I had the medical issue that occurred due to like cutting the bantam maybe in some way, like the consistent low calories and stuff in fight camp affected me. So one of the reasons I'm moving up to feather is just to be healthier in general as well, and hopefully avoid anything like this in the future, and really like have put some consistency in my fights now. If I can get through this weekend and then on to the next one as soon as possible.
For sure. Look, credit to you for the resiliency to come through all after the year, and just to the mindset you had there is what I love. You having the focus of a coach and being able to find, I guess, so like reward in that and seeing them do well, and nearly you're still involved even though you're not able to train, spar hard and stuff. It's amazing, and yeah, it's great to see you, but it's great that you're back in there. Is there anything now that you have to actually do a bit differently in the build up, especially because you're heading into your weight cut territory now? Is there different things that you have to do now, or even extra stuff that you have to do before you go into while you cut weight and before you go into a fight?
Nothing really to different for cutting weight, although I am like pretty close to my weight target this time, because at featherweight I walk pretty close, like, so I have very little to cut. My nutritionist is Nathan McGillian and Yannick McGee Nutrition, two of them. So they, as far as they're concerned, I have a really easy cut ahead of me because I'm 7% over, and like they do anything under 10% is grand. Anything under 10% is what they would see as a handy cut. So I'm only like 4 or 5 kilos over at the moment. So that's nothing. That's nothing in regards to like a water cut. So nothing really differently in regards to the cut itself, but in regards to like getting past medically, I have to do like a few extra blood tests and that kind of thing. So I've done all them. I got signed off by a hematologist to fight only there like last week, 2 weeks ago, which was great. I had to get that done. So it was a little bit extra stress, to be honest, in the fight camp, knowing that I'd been pulled from my previous fight over things medically like this that were out of my control, to still have to do a few extra things. Like obviously with SevereMMA, you get your MRI and your bloods and medicals done every year as a pro anyway. But I just had to do a few extra blood tests, and I'm in contact with a hematologist that has to check my bloods for extra things and that kind of stuff. So all of that is done, and I'm in the clear. Thank God, everything is in order, and I'm clear to fight next weekend. But yeah, I had to do a few extra things, and it was a little bit stressful, I'm not going to lie. But everything's good now, and everything's passed. So yeah, in regards to the weight cut, nothing really different, except that I have an easy cut ahead of me, moving up in weight.
Come here, did you say that who's doing your weight cut is Nathan McGillian, right? Is he not your opponent's training partner?
He is, and so is Yannick as well. So, like, I had asked,
that's a weird situation.
It's the most Irish MMA thing I've ever heard.
A few times. Like, I think Yannick is so popular in the country now. I think he's nutritioned the opponents a few times, to be honest. But this would be one of the maybe ones where like they're actually training partners, and he's not just his nutritionist. So it kind of put me off a little bit. I'm not going to lie, from signing up with them for this camp, but I just went for it in the end. Like, even like, I mean, both of them are cool guys, that I know, like, that I got on with well, Nathan and Yannick. And even like I asked Nathan there a question about creatine on fight week, just whether to drop it or whether to keep it and this kind of thing. And his reply was, your opponent asked me the exact same thing just there. So like, this is like, it's kind of funny, it's but at the end of the day, like, everyone's on the same wavelength. Like, Darragh Tolman is going to cut a similar amount of weight, maybe more, maybe less. Is he going to cut creatine? Nathan's probably going to tell him not to either. He told me not to. We're all on the same wavelength, and we're going to fight either way. maybe it matters if he knows what weight I am coming in at or something, if Nathan was able to tell him. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? It doesn't really matter. Like I said, it did put me off a tiny bit. At the start, I was like, oh, maybe I should sign with a different nutritionist. Like, they're not only his nutritionists, they're his mates. They train with him, But like there's nothing that can change. And I like Nate and I like Yannick, so, and they're really good at what they do. So I just signed up anyway. So a little bit, maybe a little bit strange, but it is what it is,
I'd say Dara's more pissed off than you are, Alexander. He's probably like, "What are you doing?"
It's true. Like, I suppose they're like training partners and teammates, and both of them are trying to help me make weight and trying to make me strong and in a condition to bait their teammate. So like that's maybe a little awkward in their camp, to be honest.
And career, look, you were saying as well, you're out in Bangtown. This camp has kind of started just before December. You're out there.
Yeah, November and December there. Yeah, 6 weeks.
Look, nearly half of Irish MMA is going out to Bangtown nowadays. But what was it? To be able to go out there, got the hard rounds, and just the bodies on the mats over there as well. I guess what was it like? What was the experience like traveling over for how many weeks were you
there? 6 weeks over there. Yeah, it was deadly. Like I say, it was to kick me into gear, to upskill as a coach as well, and to upskill as a fighter. And we've seen so many people, talk so highly about it, and just to be able to be on the mats with such high level bodies as well is deadly. Like the way I think about it is, like, you might not pick up mad technical advantages or evolutions from rounds with the high level lads, but I do think it's massive the confidence you can get, or even the motivation that, like, you can do rounds with these guys, and it's not like it's not like night and day. Like the stuff that you're doing in the gym in Ireland, it works against guys who are on a world level. It's like they're not doing anything they don't have an extra arm or something. Like they don't have anything that you can't have. But it is inspiring to see them train. Like, I was on the mats. I didn't spar Ian Garry, but I was on the mats when Ian Garry was sparring. Whaley Zhang was sparring beside me. I was able to do a round or two with some of the Australian UFC fighters, like Jimmy Crew. He's huge, but I was able to do some wrestling with him. And Jake Matthews was over there as well when I was there. And just these lads in the class, and just seeing how they're training, like they're just the same as us, the same as us, just training away, but with a great work ethic, obviously, and world class skills. But it's great to see, and to train beside them, and it just gives you confidence, to be honest, especially having been out of the cage for 2 years and sidelined and thinking I wasn't going to fight again, and this kind of thing, just to motivate me and to give me that confidence that I'm able to hang with these guys, or I will be able to hang with these guys, was the mindset behind the camp. Like Brad Riddell was the striking coach over there, Alan Lively was over there, Josh Hinger as a BJJ specialist was over there at the time. So just these world class bodies going around, and it's great to be around them, to be honest. And inspired me to bring lots of things back to CMAC, and that was one of the reasons as well. Like, not just as a fighter, but as a coach. I write down a lot of what I do in the gym, and I had a journal specifically for the Thailand training camp, and I wrote down every session we did and every round and every technique and that kind of thing, so I can bring it all back and impart it onto the lads in the gym, as well as myself, to upskill myself. I feel like as a coach, it really does help me to improve technically, because I have to improve for my fighters, and I have to be able to, I can't just know a technique. I have to know it inside and out, because I need to be able to coach it. So it makes me put that extra effort in to understand what I'm doing and what people are doing and what they're teaching me and that kind of thing. So it was a really beneficial experience, and I came back just before Christmas there. It was supposed to be Jordan Bradshaw's debut, and I was coming back for his pro debut, and his opponent pulled out 2 days out. So that happened to him 3 times last year, and that was particularly heartbreaking. But then I was back, and I've been locked into this fight with Darcy since January. So that was kind of like a pre-camp for me. But I've been in camp since January for this fight now, so it's been an incredible camp, to be honest. I'm really, really happy with the preparation for this fight.
Going abroad seems to be kind of like a theme with this camp. It's because did I see you guys were over in higher level as well, training there, and obviously, look, it's spoken the gym's spoken so highly about over as well. It's like, but how did that come about? And did you get to do any rounds with Dylan Chuk while you're over there? Actually, speaking of Irish MMA.
So it actually came about through, to be honest, I think higher level were putting out almost like an open invitation for pros to come and train with them and to spar with them to get looks for their different fighters. But me and Keith's management team is Showtime, and they have one of their lads over in the UK that works for them, is a guy called Lewis from Scotland. So Lewis, obviously being in Scotland, was able to, contact the higher level lads, and he's the one who organised it for us. So the two of us went over there for 5 days, and we did lots of rounds. We did lots of sparring rounds, lots of wrestling rounds, and drilling and that kind of thing. And it was great, great work, because the guys they have over there, they have lads who are all around their weight fighting on PFL. You've got like the looks of Mark Young on PFL, Lorenzo Parente is on PFL, and then you've got Chris Morris, Kerr Harvey, Ian Postal Weight. They all just fought there on Cage Wars last night. Sean Clancy as well. Now he'd be too big. He was too big for me and Keith to work with. He's a monster, but all the lads around our weight we got rounds in. The only reason I didn't get rounds in with Dylan too was because he was injured when we were over there. He wasn't on the mats. He was or in the gym most of the time. He was coaching the lads, shouting instructions onto the mats, even to me as well, me and Keith as well, which was cool. He's a big personality, and it was cool to see him as well. It had been a while since I'd seen him, but yeah, we didn't get any rounds in with Dylan because he wasn't training at that time. But he was still in the gym, shouting away and training on the assault bike and that kind of thing. So yeah, it was a daily experience and really high level rounds, and I highly recommend that as a gym. James Dillon has a great squad over there, and great work ethic and technical level. To be honest, everything is super. To be honest, yeah.
Alex, I always admired your selfless approach to kind of the way you spoke about how you coach and everything like that, and how it helps you as a fighter too. We see a lot of coaches who have, went through their fight career and then they share their knowledge. You're going through your fight career and you're helping all the guys and girls in your gym to go through their fight careers as well. And we're kind of seeing the rise of CMAC now in recent times with yourself and Keith, obviously, and Trevor in Cage Warriors. Kai has just been announced for PFL. We have Jordan over in Aries as well. It's just a testament to all the hard work that you guys are doing in that gym right now, and the awards. It's going to be a very exciting couple of years ahead, and I'm sure you can kind of feel that too.
Yeah, 100%. Like I was saying, we did well in 2024 in regards to like everyone kind of doing well and winning, but we weren't as active as we wanted to be. We found, obviously, with myself sidelined, Jordan with multiple pullouts, and it was very hard to get Keith matched, as you can imagine. Like with his record amateur, it's been really hard to get him matched at pro. Caoilte as well, even as an amateur, it was hard to get her matched. Like she was constantly looking for fights last year, and she only ended up getting 2 at the end of the day. And one of them was like Carolina Arm, multiple time world fucking Muay Thai pro champion that we had to fly in from Thailand. It was getting very tough to get our lads matched, So that's why the year was kind of slow. But I knew that the reason we weren't getting matches is because we were good. I knew it, and I truly believe it's because we are very good, and we just need the platform. So throughout the kind of slowish year when it came to fights, we've been working really hard behind the scenes, and we're ready to showcase that now on the big stage. So I knew the signings were coming, and this is hopefully now going to translate onto the big stage now. So in some way, this is a big like kind of culmination, and maybe a culmination of years of hard work. Like there was times like the likes of me and Jordan and Keith and Trevor and even Caoilte that we've been training a long time all together, like as a team, and we literally live within a kilometre of each other. We're all just from like the council estates from the area, to be honest. So we were just training nearly to just have something to do at one point, and now we're all pros and we're all signed to big organisations. And that was the dream at one point, but it's important, I think, to now kick into that next level where this is no longer the dream, this is reality, and this is only the start of what we need to do, because like it needs to then move on to the next level where we need to be winning belts and fights in these organizations and proving how good we believe we are, you know. So I do think it's a testament to a lot of the hard work, but it's also only a beginning in a way as well. Like that, I hoped to be a little bit farther through my pro career at this point, but I got sidelined for medical reasons outside my control. But I'm looking to really shoot for it this year. So Ian Dean's told me that I'll have 3 fights at the minimum. So that will be hopefully 5-0 by the end of the year, and looking to mix it with the top of the lads in the division on Cage Warriors. Then Keith's looking to get a similar amount of fights this year, as well as Trevor on Cage Warriors, and then Jordan as well with Aries. You know, as far as we're aware, he's the first Irish fighter to sign with Aries, and I think the organisation's going to really suit him, suit his style and the kind of vibe he brings. You know, so he's going to have a lot of success and a lot of fun over there. Hopefully, he's fighting 3 weeks after me now, so I'll be over there in France with him. And then when it comes to Caoilte, you know, she was like I say, hard to get her matches last year, even as an amateur. So we knew she was going pro this year, and we really wanted to top it off with an IMAF gold. So the way she performed as well in the IMAFs, and even last year in the fight she could have, you know, I think that a lot of times you look at fighters in the amateur ranks and you think, you know, they're very good, and they're probably going to be good pros. But I think like the way Caoilte, even as a good amateur, kind of stood out in that, like, just how relaxed she was and how clinical she is with her approach to fighting, that we already knew like she's going to be a good pro. Like she was more than ready. So I think that's particularly why she's been signed to kind of a bigger organization for her debut, because she has already proven that she's well capable at that level, you know. So she was able to pick up our first senior gold as a gym, which was great as well. We've had golds at junior level, and we've had senior bronzes and senior silvers, I believe. But the senior gold is an elusive medal. You know, it's a really, like, you're the best amateur in the world, or well, in Europe, I suppose. It was the Europeans, and Corey was able to do that and do it, you know, easily. To be honest, don't want to say easily. You know, it's always hard, but she looked a level above, I felt, and
she sure did. She's
ready to go pro now, and straight into the mix, you know, on the big competition. So, yeah, she's doing great, and I think that she'll be followed by a few other lads soon as well towards the end of the year or early next year. We have a few lads chomping at the bit as well to go pro. So we have 5 pros all signed to big organisations, and we'll have 2 or 3 more in the near future as well. So this is like I say, a testament to all the hard work, but it's also a beginning as well. You know, we're a pro. We want to be a pro gym. I think we train and we behave like a pro gym, and it's just been we have to let everyone else know, if you know what I mean.
Alexander, I've been so impressed by Kaya at amateur, like, as I know that the other 2 lads have. Her fighting style is so entertaining. She's a finisher, and when I heard that she was going pro, my head went to Sean O'Bannon, and I was thinking, like, obviously Kaya has signed with the PFL and she's starting her professional career there, but if I think back to Sean O'Bannon's run into the pros, and I know they've trained together, within the space of a year she was 5-0 as a professional and signed to the UFC. And, you know, obviously it's still very early stages and Kaya's only making her pro debut and all that, but I think I speak for the rest of the lads. Like, we see the potential in Kaya where she could go on a similar path and in no time be signed to the likes of a UFC. Where do you see her future, and how quickly, you know, do you think she can rise to that kind of level that quickly?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. She absolutely can go all the way to the top. You know, we had a good think about it. We really did. And the reason why we went with PFL and why we didn't kind of say to hang on and have a few fights and then move into the UFC as early as possible is just because she is so young, you know. In the case of Shauna, she's in her 30s now, as far as I know. And that's exactly what she needed to do. You know, credit to Paddy, her coach, and her team around her for kind of planning the way they did, because she needs to be in the position where she is right now. And, like, credit to her as well. Like, you know, she came into the game kind of late and is now able to be right at the top of the game, winning 50 grand bonuses. And she had to do it the way she had to do it because that was the only way to do it, you know, and she did it really well. And she's doing it really well. like I say, Koya's been sparring over with Shauna for our last camp. Koya's a southpaw, and Shauna's opponent was a southpaw. So they brought her in for Koya, or they brought Koya in for Shauna. So she sparred Shauna twice a week for 6 weeks or so, up until Shauna's fight, 6 to 8 weeks or so. And that was an incredible experience for Koya as well. It brought Koya on a lot. In a similar way to what I was saying earlier, is like, it's not even about she's going to pick up loads of new techniques, which she will, but it's just that confidence and motivation to know that Shauna's competing at the highest level in the UFC and Koya's sparring her twice a week, knowing that this is what she needs to do and she can do that too. So the only reason we didn't take a kind of a similar route is just due to Koya's youth, really, because she's 21. She has time, and she has time to mature as a fighter, and she has time to move into other promotions like the UFC a little bit down the line. It's arguable that like 21 is almost too young to be in your prime. So without giving away like all of the bleeding future plans we have, like, she signed 2 years, as far as I know, 2 years, 5 fights to the PFL, and we're going to try rise up the ranks there as quick as possible. Win a few fights. The idea is to be in a tournament next year, if everything is going according to plan, one of the PFL tournaments. And after that, then to move fairly quickly into other organizations, perhaps, or then move into maybe one of the biggest PFL tournaments. So it's going to be quick either way. It's going to be quick either way. But I think for everyone, and I think for Koya herself, being in the UFC is incredible, and being in the UFC is a goal for sure, but it will probably be a few years down the line now for Koya. But that doesn't mean there won't be big fights ahead of her. I think there's really, really big fights in the near future for Koya, probably through PFL, or going to be through PFL, as you know now. She's signed, but it will just be a tiny bit longer to go to the UFC probably. But I do think it's going to stand to her. So we're looking at maybe 24, 25. Koya will be looking at the UFC, to be honest. After tearing it up in PFL for a few years, and making a few bob as well for herself, like that. Shauna was able to fly into the UFC nice and quickly, but 3 fights on Cage Legacy or whatever, there's no money involved there, which is fine, and that's what Shauna needed to do. But in PFL there is, and Koya's gonna do as best she can over there, build, and then be more than ready, and even enter into the UFC on a way that she's wanted by the UFC. She's on it, maybe entering on better contracts and that kind of thing than it would be if she was just coming from a domestic show. It's great to see. I think more crossover in the promotions. Like even Aaron Pico has come over to the UFC. We've seen obviously Pitbull just fought there in the UFC. So these type of lads, Kayla Harrison actually came straight from PFL as well. So these fighters it's happening. It's happening. So these are the fighters that we'll be looking to emulate down the line. For the moment, and one of the reasons why we're doing PFL is because we signed with HD Global. So HD Global manage Dakota Cheva and Chanel Dyer. So we're looking for Koya to kind of walk in their footsteps at the moment. Dakota has been extremely successful with PFL, and we'll see where she goes next. I have a little bit of insight into that as well, just due to working with HD now. But
do you?
Yeah, don't be teasing us like that, Alexander.
Yeah, I won't say too much. I don't know. I don't know what's going on anyway. But there's big things in the works for Dakota for sure. And Chanel Dyer obviously got signed from PFL. She's now on the Dana White's Contender Series, if I'm correct. So
yeah,
that's another option for Koya there down the line as well. You have a few fights with PFL, and then the Dana White's Contender Series comes knocking as well. So either Chanel or Dakota are the type of girls that Koya has been looking to emulate, and hopefully in the next few years we'll see her walk similar paths, and then the opportunities will arise whichever way it comes, whether it's the big tournament in the PFL or whether she jumps earlier. Whichever happens, she's going to have some big fights in the near future for sure.
Alexander, big fight coming up for yourself now this week. The return after nearly that 2-year layoff. How do you see this fight playing out with Darragh Tooman? Rematch from 2016, I believe.
Yeah, a long time ago. I was 17 at the time, and I think Darragh was already in his 20s or so. And I think that, like, obviously having the win over him is nice, but it's not really relevant to the current fight. I think that both of us have changed so much. I'm 26 now, nearly a decade on, and I'm bigger and stronger and much more technical, much better than I was at the time. And I know Darragh is too. Darragh has had somewhere like 20 fights since then as well. And he's a good test. I think he, this is his 8th pro fight. This is my 3rd pro fight. It's exactly where I want to be fighting in my 3rd fight. I want to fight someone with that pro experience and show that I'm still better than him now, almost a decade on than I was when I was a child. But how I see it going, to be honest, I'm just gonna mix it. I'd love to showcase my striking. I think my striking is really good, and I think it will be really fun to watch. It's great to see our style through Caoilte. I think Caoilte's striking is one of the reasons why she got signed and why she looks so good. And my style is, like, I've shown her how to do that. So I need to show that I can do it as well. All I need to do is just figure out the stuff at takedown, and I'll be grand. So but look, if it goes to the ground, I'm gonna look to submit him anyway. But I'd love to showcase some striking in this fight. So hopefully you do get to see me doing a bit of damage on the feet this time. And either way, I'm looking to come out there with a finish. That was the one thing I couldn't do in our first fight. I was able to win by decision, and I had Darragh in a few dangerous positions, but I couldn't finish him. He's very tough. He's as tough as an old bill. And I'm looking to kind of show that I've improved past a decision victory over Darragh and finish him next week. That's the goal, to be honest. I'm looking for a finish, be it submission or on the feet. I'm looking to finish next week for sure. Yeah.
I love it. I was expecting you to say armbar, to be honest, considering the record. But look,
I don't want to give it away. I don't know. If I'm not sure if Darragh has copped on to my last 3 wins away armbar, but maybe he hasn't noticed. But if I don't want to say it out loud.
You're definitely not going for an armbar here.
No, absolutely not. It's not. There's no chance. No chance. Yeah, just pass this on to Darragh. There's no chance. I don't know what an armbar is. I completely forgot. In the 2 years out, having a clue.
Brilliant. Yeah. Alexander, thank you so much for joining us, and best of luck in the fight. We look forward to seeing you, and we're delighted that you're back in the cage after it was a very tough time for you health-wise. But great to see you again. Thanks for coming on.
Appreciate it, lads. Great to be on, and looking forward to next week.
All right, great to hear from Alex there. Very excited to see his comeback against Darragh as well, and crazy story for Alex as well. Speaking about prospects, Andy, obviously Alexander is the one who's kind of maybe leading the charge as a prospect, with him being so established as an amateur and stuff like that. But we've got plenty of other prospects on the card as well. Looking towards maybe a teammate of his, Keogh, to name one, but anyone that kind of sticking out to you, any stories that you're interested in telling about some of these up and coming prospects? Obviously, we were speaking to another couple. We kind of trended our podcast this week on these up and coming prospects as well, and talking to Alex, to Ciaran and to Max as well. But we've got plenty to choose from on this card, Andy.
Yeah, I suppose for a portion of them, the team is we have been focusing in on them as amateurs and as blossoming professionals on the Irish scene, but now they're taking that next step up to the Cage Warriors ranks. The likes of, now I know he had his pro debut there, but the likes of Ciaran Brady, who we'll hear from, the likes of Keogh and Max Lally and Conor McCarthy, who I know he's had a fight on Cage Warriors already, but they're just starting out their journeys where we've seen them at a certain level on the Irish scene, and in particular, obviously, we've seen Ciaran Brady fight Georgie Grosjean, which was a barn burner. But now we're going to see, over the next 2-3 fights, it's not going to be just the same level of competition each time. Ian Dean will work with them, and we're going to see them tested and all that stuff, and we'll get to learn more about them. We'll get to see, okay, do they live up to our probably unfair expectations most of the time? Because we're always like, this guy's going to be in the UFC when it's like putting that label on every single guy we start to get excited about. But like we're just going to learn about them and we're going to see more. And I think that like that's kind of what I see here in this card as far as the prospects go. Obviously, like you look at a guy like Max Lally, and like he appears to have just bags of talent. He's coming in for his Cage Warriors debut. Very excited to see him. But similarly, like Adam Darby, who we've seen in Cage Warriors before, he's been out for a while. He's back now. Like I could name.
I remember we spoke with Graham Boylan ahead of. Maybe it wasn't the last Dublin card, but one time before we spoke to Graham Boylan, and I don't know whether you guys remember. I remember distinctly when we asked him who he felt was the best prospect coming through right now, and he did single out Adam Darby too. And Adam's been very unlucky since then. He hasn't had the chance to go out there and showcase his abilities. But I definitely would echo those sentiments as well. A guy who I'm really looking forward to kind of seeing in there on Saturday night.
I'm buzzing to see him. Like there's so many, like Scott Harvey 4-0, Eimear Darcy 2-0. I'm thinking like I'm seeing Paddy McCarthy there, who like he's only got six official fights.
Who's already like a veteran prospect.
Yeah, like I don't like when we're talking in this kind of portion about like these early prospects. I don't classify him as the same because. To be honest, Paddy McCarthy is, aside from the two title fights, I see Paddy McCarthy as like he's the guy to watch on this card because I think this could potentially be the last time you see him in Cage Warriors. I wouldn't be surprised. I know he's already done the tough stint, but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him fight this and then they get put on Dana White's Contender Series or directly into the UFC. This or maybe one more fight. Maybe he'll want to go for the belt and have a Belfast homecoming or something like that. But he's not a few fights prospect material. He's already proven himself to be a lot more dangerous than that, a lot more experienced than that, has faced incredibly difficult competition. And I think he's ready for, he's just waiting for that next jump up now. So like he's the guy outside of the two title fights to watch on this card, in my opinion.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, Andy. And another person that I'll throw over to you, I feel that a lot of people will be watching and does get a shout out in the Max interview as well, as Solomon Simon Caoilte, 5-0 right now, coming in to take on Christian Iorga, who's at 7-2. And, Solomon with a really good breakout performance in his last fight, was riding the crest of the wave of that performance where he went out and took on Walter Conleandro and beat him very convincingly, finished him with a ninja choke with seconds to go in the fight. Not easy task for someone to come in and try and one up that, but he has a good opportunity here to go and kind of really establish himself in the featherweight division, whether it's on we're going to be talking if he goes out there and wins this fight, whether he's a title contender in my opinion already, but he's going to really put himself into the mix if he can go out there and put away this guy on Saturday night.
Yeah, similar to Paddy McCarthy, when you look at fights outside of the two title fights, you're looking at ones that are going to have an impact on, I guess, the divisions and Cage Warriors itself. And if you're looking at, like, Paddy McCarthy is obviously one of them, but if you're looking at someone who could directly go into a title shot after this, it's Solomon Simon, because his rise and the fights he's taken, I guess the improvement in, the matchmaking has been so good here, where the improvement in level every single time. And we're talking about this, and he's 5-0, and the fact that he's, the difference between a 5-0 guy that has this, the difference between a 5-0 guy that is competing against very difficult competition from very early on, and good matchmaking and progression in his career has helped significantly compared to someone who may not have that kind of progression in the fights that they've been given and matched with. So now he's looking at his sixth professional fight and Cage Warriors title he's on the cusp of a Cage Warriors title if he wins this one. Like, this is a guy who went in there last time and brought George Hardwick to all 5 rounds, and now Solomon Simon has the opportunity to go in here he could get a big win in front of an Irish crowd and then earn himself a title shot. I think he'd be well within his right to be calling for one if he wins this, and yeah, it's one of those stories. It could be just such a massive year for him, and he could go on a real push this year to win on this fight.
Yeah, very, very excited to see Solomon. I think that sets us up nicely, obviously, to speak with Ciaran Brady, obviously, ahead of his fight as well. Andy mentioned the fantastic performance he had against Georgi Gorzav in his last fight. Obviously, picking up that win, which set up this opportunity for him to come in here against Giovanni Fernandez from France, who's sitting at a 3-2 record. Let's head on over and hear what Ciaran has to say about his fight and a couple of other things as well.
And now we are joined on the L Triangle by a man who has taken the Irish amateur scene by storm, and now he's taken the professional scene by storm. He's fighting this Saturday at Cage Warriors 188 against Giovanni Fernandez. Ciaran Brady of Team Tara's. Ciaran, thank you for joining the show. How are you?
I'm good, boys. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, we've been wanting to have you on for a long time. I was saying you're in dad mode today, are you? I saw on your Instagram story pulling there were some four-wheelers going on there. It was pretty impressive stuff.
Four-wheelers with no batteries, so I had to pull them. Had to tie them to two dog leads and then tie them to myself. I'm just pulling up the road.
This is like go on ahead.
It's supposed to be my rest day today too, but sure, I'll do no harm.
Getting in some strength and conditioning.
Yeah.
An unconventional way of cutting weight, I'd say.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm not too bad this week, to be honest. I don't cut an awful lot of weight compared to most guys, to be fair. So no real issues.
Do you have any kind of like prep or like would you do the same things each camp in the kind of the lead up? Like obviously, like once you're getting to around this time, you're getting pretty close to the fight, and it's tapering down and just kind of getting ready. Do you have any rituals or recurring kind of themes?
No, well, like everything, I suppose I say no, but then when I think back there, fight week is the exact same every time. So yes, everything's the same. It's just we do the same things then leading up to the fight. We'll have the same routines, maybe a couple of different wee circuits here and there, but nothing too crazy. We've all the hard work done by now. Sure, you know, and this week's just about keeping the body right and making sure you're right and ready to go come Saturday.
100%. Ciaran, I remember speaking to you after your pro debut win in the RDS on Cage Warriors, and there was a lot. We did a 4-minute interview, but there was a lot in there that I was fascinated by. And one of the things was you were talking about how you got into the sport late, like that at the time it had only been, I think, 4.5 years. I'm guessing it was around maybe 2020. Am I right when you stepped into the sport? Is that correct?
Yeah. So my wife was pregnant with our first boy. He's 4 now. Yes, my first novice fight, and I'd only been training 6 months prior to that. So yeah, we're just done. Yeah, I was 25 whenever I started, I think.
Well, because like we'll talk a little bit about kind of what you discussed after the fact, but like 25 is like, it's pretty late to be getting into MMA. So like, how did you find MMA, and what did ages, not to give your full life story obviously, but like ages 0 to 25, like what did that look like for Ciaran Brady before finding MMA? Gaelic
football. I'll tell you a short story. I have 2 senior players of the year for my club. Before I was 21 or 22, and not because I was the best footballer in the village, because I wasn't. There was probably 10 guys that were better footballers than me, but I tried harder. I was at every single training session from I was. I know that before the years that I left, I didn't miss a team session for 2 years before I had left to do the MMA. So, I was always sport orientated. Like obviously I worked at delivered potatoes for a living, but all I wanted to do was get to football at night. Get to my training. Get a bit of training done, have a bit of crack with the boys, which essentially is what I'm still doing now, but only every day. And
yeah,
unfortunately.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate side effect. When did you start delivering potatoes?
I started delivering potatoes I started working at that family business, Lawrence Adrian and Sons, when I was 12. My best friend's family owned it, and I was there working every Saturday from I was 12. And then, obviously, once I left school, I was there full time, and it was 60 hours a week, and then 1 week and 70 hours the next week. So it was tough and brutal, and it was. But again, at the time, I loved it. I was getting good money, cash in hand, at the end of every week, and I felt like felt like a really rich kid, but I was working the hours for it. But eventually then it started to interfere with my ability to train, in terms of how much I wanted to commit to football. And that's whenever I realised then in life, I was like, sort of in my early 20s, I was like, right, I'm happier when I'm training. I'm not happy when I'm working. So how do I change this around? And unfortunately, in the GAA, there's not a lot of money, but there's a lot of guys give a lot of effort to it, like almost full time, and they don't get much from it apart from the fact it keeps them on a good straight and narrow path and keeps them out of trouble. But I knew I wanted to somehow pay my bills by training sports somehow. And during the off season for Gaelic, I just decided that I would go into Dartomans near and do. Oh, my granddad died. Sorry, when I was 24, granddad died. He was a boxing coach and a professional boxer, and he whenever granddad was around, I didn't do any boxing at all really. I learned the basics, learned how to skip and jab and cross and hook whenever I was younger, but didn't do an awful lot. So when granddad died, I thought, right, I'll give the boxing a go. I lasted about I'd say 2 months at the boxing. Didn't like getting punched in the head all the time. Realised that I could grab a hold of people in MMA and squeeze them like a bag of potatoes, and that was working a lot better for me. So that's really it. That's how I ended up at the MMA then.
Yeah, I mean that's a great story. So like, as far you mentioned there, your connections through family into combat sports, and that you did try boxing kind of, in your 20s, but growing up, obviously Gaelic football is a very physical sport. But like, would you've had any interactions with combat? Like, I don't mean like fighting in the street or anything, but like, it's a new transition to starting MMA and boxing, where you're getting punched in the face, where you're getting manhandled on a daily basis. Like, what was that a stark awakening for you, or were you used to?
Yeah, no, look, I'll openly admit it too, and a lot of my teammates and other teams that I played against, I was a slobber. I was just I was a spoiled rotten child when I was younger, and I was not spoiled rotten, but I got everything I wanted, and I didn't want for a lot, in terms of, I worked that job and I had money, and I never needed a lot, and I thought that everything should be going my way, and when things weren't going my way, I'd have been the first to yap about it. Like, I'd have been the first to yap or slobber at another opponent or the referee, or I'd have bitched a lot, done a lot of bitching, but never would have been in a fight. I always knew I had the comfort of the referee there to back me up, essentially, so I could have slobbered no problem, but I always had that fear of, my God, if somebody actually does do something to me here, I'm in trouble. And then obviously, whenever I started having kids and stuff, I was a dad then. I was like, right, I need to learn how to protect myself at the very least, not my family. So I was a slobber when I was younger, and still there, lads.
Yeah, still here. Don't worry.
Yeah, no, I was just a bit of a mouthpiece, but I've always been nice enough my whole life. But at the same time, when it came to, I've always been what's the best word to describe it? I know, like, I don't like losing. I suppose that's a good way to put it. I hate losing. So even when things weren't going well on the football field, I'd have been like, when I couldn't do anything about it physically, I would have then resulted in doing maybe some slobbering or giving off or yapping, just to try and get attention that way, and it never worked. It wasn't doing anything positive for anybody, the teammates or myself. So I did realise that I may go and get into something that I'm not going to talk as much, and I can just try and use my physical skills, instead of talking.
You mentioned that you didn't like the boxing, and then you kind of realised, okay, maybe I'll give this MMA crack a try. What was your initial thoughts, like, after, say, going to your first few MMA training sessions, or like, did you take like it to a duck to water, or what was your thoughts on it?
I've always had a very good squeeze. So as I was saying about the potatoes, like, if I get a hold of something, I can squeeze it and lift it and throw it and do that pretty well, because I've done that for 12 hours a day. I was literally lifting 25 kilo bags of potatoes on your shoulders every day and walking them in there to chippies. So it was just repetition. So even probably, I would say, 5 fights into my, maybe even had an amateur title or two before I realised that all I'm doing in these fights is lifting people, squeezing them and holding them, and that's all I was comfortable doing. It took me a long time to start doing other things, and we letting go, passing, giving myself a wee bit more of an opportunity. But again, it just all comes with time, doesn't it? I wasn't comfortable to let go. I was comfortable squeezing, and you'll probably see that even in some of my fights. I start off like that a lot. I'd always get in there and get close and see if I'm going to be stronger or is he stronger or what's happening. And from there, I gain my confidence, then. So that has played a massive part in MMA, like, definitely. And I didn't take to the grappling like a duck to water at all, but with consistency, the same with the Gaelic when I was younger. I'm there. I show up every day, and with that process, I haven't got any worse. I've only managed to get better, thankfully.
You said to me after your pro debut that you felt like an outsider in the sport. Now that was, and the reason why you gave was essentially because you'd started at 25, because you're relatively new compared to all of these guys who'd been around the block a long while. And I was kind of saying to you at the time, like, well, like, look what you're doing in the sport. And since then, and we'll talk about, some of the fights you've had since then, but it's particularly the Grozow fight, you've continued to excel. You've continued to excel against tougher and tougher competition. So I'm curious now, kind of a year on from when we spoke, do you still feel like an outsider in the sport?
No, I don't. I don't feel as much of an outsider, that's for sure. But in terms of, like, I still suffer with, like, I get nervous, obviously. I think everybody does, they're bound to. But in terms of my own, whenever I think through, like, let's say, scenarios in the fight, I think, oh, what if he does this, or what if he does that, or what if this happens? And I've definitely got better with dealing with them thoughts and stuff. But no, in terms of feeling like an outsider, I can't possibly anymore. Like, maybe at the bigger shows, at like the Cage Warriors and stuff, but all the local shows here, like, I'm at most of them, while I'm working at IER, or while I'm cornering with boys with Halpendar, Clan Wars, or whether I'm up at some of the new, the Belfast shows. I know everybody. I know all the medics. I know all the teams. I know almost, a lot of the fighters now. So I feel like I'm part of the community now, without a doubt. There's none of the events I can go to, and I wouldn't be sitting on my own for long before somebody would come and talk to me, But I know, just in terms of, like, I still feel as if this has all happened quite fast, And then whenever I think about the actual fights and stuff, I still think, oh, fuck, am I actually doing this? Jesus, fuck, what am I doing? But that passes over, and as you say, well, the last fight there and the last big win, it's given me a lot more confidence in my ability. I feel like I fought well in that fight, and I fought like how I'd been training. Sometimes it's okay. It's easy to train in a certain way and train for certain things, but it's very hard to put it into play then in the cage. And whereas in the last fight, I felt comfortable. I felt like I was in control. Apart from the fact that I got triangled, if I take that out of the fight, then the rest of the time I felt good. I felt comfortable. I felt like a professional athlete. And so to answer your question in short, I don't anymore. I feel like I'm part of the community now.
You mentioned the nerves there. How do you manage the nerves? And because I feel like my perspective or assumption maybe is that the vast majority of fighters deal with nerves. It's just most people maybe don't talk about it, which is kind of mad. And I think it's a good thing, because, like, everyone, of course, you're getting into a fist fight in a cage. Of course, you're going to feel nervous. How do you deal with it all?
Well, like let's say last fight, for example, walking into the venue, walking through the place, like, I walk in, I have to sign that sheet where you have to more or less sign your life away. It says, I'll do this medical, and it's okay, yeah, I'm grand, whatever happens. And you're shaking like mad after signing that, and you're thinking, oh my God, right, what have I just done, right? And I was walking up to the changing room, and when I get into the changing room, obviously the team and all is there, and Seb's there, and he's, well, how's it going? And every time, I think the last 3 times I remember anyway, is I have to say, yes, good, but I still need a hug. And I have to hug Seb, and I have to just admit to him, I'm scared to death, and he laughs at me, and then I laugh at him, and then we realise, fuck, we're just doing this again, this has happened before, he'll be totally fine, and I get over it, I've got better at it.
I mean, like, it's fascinating to hear you talk about that, and then particularly, like, when you're saying that, and then going into a fight like against a Georgie Grozow, who, like, the two of you guys were this crazy unbeaten streaks for years, like 2 out-and-out prospects with serious futures going head-to-head. Like, we were frothing at the mouth when we were, like, thinking of this fight coming up. So when you're going in like, what was that? I suppose, what was the whole experience like? Because it was mad. Like, I'd say there was probably nerves going into fight a guy like him, and then the fight itself was like a buzzsaw. And of course, you know, he had you in that triangle. You eventually, got out of it and then took over and got the finish. Like, it was an incredible win. But to go into a fight like that, like, what was the thought process going into that? You know, taking that fight, the nerves ahead of it, and then additionally, what was your experience of that fight like? Because from a viewer's perspective, it was incredible.
Yeah, well, from the start, like, again, I think I'll put it out here at the start. We don't pick our fights at Team Torres. We never have. I certainly haven't had the opportunity to do it. You get told, Seb tells us who you're fighting, and that's it. You don't get to question it. The way I look at it is, if Seb believes that we're capable of winning the fight, then we have to believe we're capable of winning the fight. But I'll also tell you too, I've also told this to Seb, my wife, I've admitted it, my friends, my family, everybody. I didn't prepare for that fight as well as I should have, because I essentially ruled myself out. I counted myself out of it a few times, because I was like, fuck, George is good. 3 first-round finishes. Fuck it. If I just do what I have to do here, show up and, you know, do what I can do, I'll be happy enough with myself. I didn't do any, not extra. I didn't even do, I normally do, like, in every fight camp, most fighters will do, say, 2 conditioning sessions a week where you're just emptying the tank on the air bike or whatever. I didn't do them in the Georgie fight. Well, I done them for the first 2 weeks, and then maybe the last 3 or 4 weeks of the camp, I didn't even do them. I was just saying to myself, fuck it, you know, just show up, you'll be okay. And I didn't, I hadn't 100% give up myself. I'll be silly saying that, but I was taking the easy options, because I kind of knew that in my head I was like, fuck, this guy's good, so if I do get beat, then I have an easy reason, you know, it's an easy out, like, you know, oh well, I lost, fuck it, you know. But and then again, like, a fight week, I was feeling really sharp. I'd been to Manchester top team a few weeks prior to that, and I had took a few things home from there that I wanted to work on, and as they were, even in just my concentration level and all, and training and all was great that week. And Seb sat me down at the end of the week and he says, look, you're looking sharper and ready and better than ever. And I was thinking to myself, fuck, maybe I am then, you know. And from him telling me that and his confidence in me, I was like, right, fuck it up, maybe I am then, you know. And then by the time I got the night of the fight, as I'm saying, I got in, I was shitting myself as normal. I had my wee fella with me, I had Isaac with me, and tried to hide the nervousness from him, you know, because I was just like, right, I'll bring him along. So got up to the change room, got settled down, 15-20 minutes, I was scared. And then so just lay there for maybe 2 hours, just on the floor. The wee fella was lying beside me playing on my phone, and I was just chilling out like it was a normal Sunday afternoon anywhere else. And then I started getting ready for the fight, and once I got into the fight, I had a landed a jab, I think, almost straight away. And I don't know on the movement, but he was moving to my, he was moving, he was reacting to my feints and fakes and feints, and I just thought to myself, holy fuck, there's a chance that I can win this fight. Now, then that obviously all changed pretty quickly whenever I got put in the triangle, and I thought, oh no, maybe I can't. And that thought process through my head. Everything happened so quickly in there where I can remember thinking to myself, oh fuck it, I'll just top. I've done well, you know, I've got this far, I had a good exchange at the start. And, you know, and then by the time that thought went through my head, the next thought came into my head was, okay, wait, I'm still breathing here, maybe I'm okay. And then I was out of the triangle, and then I was able to turn the fight around and win the fight. So, yeah, a lot of mixed emotions for me still from that fight. I'm even still thinking about it. I don't want to overthink about it, because I don't want to think, fuck, oh, you're fucking fast now. But at the same time, I have to take confidence from it that I beat a good guy when I wasn't at my very best, and that's God's honest truth. I was not at my best. I was at my sharpest. I wasn't at my fittest. I'm a lot fitter now this time around for this fight than what I was for that last fight. But yeah, it was good. I'm glad that Daki and Seb had the confidence in me to put me forward for that fight, because I certainly wouldn't have picked it myself.
Yeah, it was really impressive, Ciaran. Like, we were mad impressed by it. Obviously, two, as Andy said, 2 top guys going against one another. But, you know, we were just as impressed, really, with the dance moves that were pulled off after the win inside the cage. And I'm just wondering a little bit of insight into that. Was there much time spent in front of the mirror kind of breaking down some of that? Did much effort go into kind of breaking down those dance moves? Because they were flawless when you just flowed into it, Ciaran.
That is bad dad dancing at its best. If you get so bad, you can be good. That's the way it seems to be working out for me, because I've never practiced a dance in my life, and the only time I ever dance is really probably after a win. So I suppose I'm winning a lot, so I've been getting a bit of practice in. So yeah, maybe that's what's happening.
It was hilarious.
It's been very funny because, like, you know, I've had mates and all writing to me. It's in that Cage Warriors advertisement, you know, that's been coming up on people's phones or whatever, you know, on their Instagram and all. And I've had mates write to me saying, "Oh, you see, you made the Cage Warriors video," and I'm like, "Aye, but unfortunately, it's not for my fighting, like, it's for my fucking dancing." But maybe someday my fighting will make it into the promo videos, and that's when I know I really made it. Then, you know.
100%. But was it that your wife you were dancing with, or we were confused?
Yeah. Rebecca, that's my wife. Yeah. That's my wife. She that was another great play from me there in terms of getting better at this MMA. For like a normal wife, my wife just fought against me with everything. You're like, "Why are you going that? That's stupid. MMA. Why are you doing that? That's even stupider." And then eventually we were at a show in Oma, and Rebecca bumped into Jess and stuff at the event, and I said, "Look, we got her to do the course," and now she's at more MMA events than I am, and she loves it. You know, she gets talking to fighters every weekend. She understands the sacrifice that we're all putting in, you know, even at amateur level, not just what it takes to be a pro, but it's she has a lot more understanding of the sport now. And like I said, the two of us sat up and watched Cage Warriors last night, and she's looking for cuts in between the rounds, and you know, I'm looking for techniques here and there. So it's just it made my life a lot easier, that, you know.
100%.
Ciaran, with your debut, you fought on Cage Warriors, and then we see you go back to the regional scene, have your 2 fights, and now you're back in there again. Is it a case now where you're looking to stay with Cage Warriors long term, or do you like the fact that you can fight on the regional scene as well? How's that looking for you?
Well, I really, here's the truth, I don't care. I don't care where I fight. I just let Sev and Daki make the decisions. I'll be honest, I was happy with them 2 fights in IUR because, again, I wanted a bit of time I feel so comfortable at IUR, and just because I work on the show whenever I'm not fighting on it, and I know everyone there and stuff, so that definitely helped me with my nerves and stuff. But look, if I sign a deal with Cage Warriors, then happy days. If I don't, I'll fight in Daki's show, no problem. I'm not going to tie myself down anywhere, I don't think, because I'm at a funny stage. Like that's what I'm saying. I'm 30 now. I have a wife and a family, a young family. I'm still really committed to the sport for now, but like one fight, maybe one bad punch to the head could change everything for me in terms of if I come home and my young fella's crying and tells me he doesn't want his daddy to do that anymore, I'll sit down and really consider that. You know, I'm not. I have my heart set here and stay in this sport forever. So everything changes for me in terms of just after every fight, and everything's been going well for me. So I'm not going to say I want to get beat, I'm going to run away from the sport. You know, that's definitely not what I'm saying, because I learned more after my 2 losses at amateur than I did after any of these wins as an amateur or pro. But I have to just reconsider everything with my age and my, just in terms of my financial situation too. Like I have a house, I have a mortgage, you know, kids need to grow up and get holidays and get everything that unfortunately as an MMA fighter it doesn't pay you that well, as I'm sure you guys well know. But I can still, the dream of making big money someday is still there, and I'm really, really lucky with the sponsors that I have been, I'm able to keep my head above water, you know, in terms of financially, like just at the minute. But I don't know when all that's going to stop, you know, and like say I get an injury or whatever, I just have to be very thankful for how every day is going. And again, I'll probably not tie myself down to anything, but I'll definitely take opportunities as they come along, you know.
Ciaran, I think if you keep going the way you're going, and I think you're dead right, especially with a young family, to be thinking about it from a monetary perspective. There's different strokes for different folks, and people have different priorities, and you have yours. So, but if you keep going the way you're going, I think with an exciting fighting style, with a finisher, with the dad dancing, of course, in the cage, promotions would be lucky to have you. You mentioned there you were doing a bit of tape study, just generally on watch a cage, whereas your wife's looking for the cuts, you're looking at the techniques, etc. You're fighting Giovanni Fernandez this coming Saturday. Have you watched tape on him? Have you studied him? What do you see in this fight against him on Saturday night?
I haven't watched him just yet. And I'll tell you again, I'm not afraid to say why. I don't watch footage yet because I live on the edge of my seat with fear if I watch something too soon. So if I watch my guy 5 weeks ago and he hit somebody with a right head kick, I'm panicking about right head kicks for the next 6 weeks. I'm waking up in the morning thinking about right head kicks, going to sleep at night thinking about right head kicks. So I just don't do it. I've done it before and it's freaked me out. So now I'll watch it fight week. This week I'll sit down at the start of the week where I'm kind of like, right, I'm a week out. I've no real option. I have to watch this now. And I feel a lot mentally more prepared anyway to watch it because I'm in shape and I'm ready to go. And I feel better, but I haven't watched them yet. Seb has obviously watched them. He's told me things to watch out for, things that are going to work. I've trained for the fight, but in terms of watching him, I will watch him this week here. I'll sit down and do a little bit more, but it's again, it doesn't really affect me, and that's the truth. I fight the way I fight. I do what I do and what I'm strong at. There's no point in me trying to fight somebody else's strength because that's not the way I've got to where I am now. So I'm not going to start doing that now.
I was going to ask the traditional, what's your fight prediction? But I feel like you've been very honest with us, and you've gone different ways, and I appreciate that. You can give us a fight prediction if you want, but I'll ask instead.
Still there,
what does this? Yeah, we're still here. You've been here. I'll just ask, what does a successful night look like for you on Saturday night? And I won't ask for the fight prediction, but what does a successful night look like for you, for Ciaran Brady on Saturday night?
Well, another successful night would be a win in any shape or form. Preferably, I'm going to have to get a 15-minute all-out war here at some stage in terms of, I know I have the output for 9 minutes. I don't know if I've trained for the output for 15 minutes for training, but it's different when you're in a fight. I know I'm going to have to get that out of the way at some stage. So if that's this Saturday night, then happy days. If I get another finish and become 4-0 as a pro before finishes, that would be amazing too, But like I can say, me and the wife still laugh whenever she says to me, you're 3-0 as a pro with 3 finishes, and I still laugh at myself and think, holy fuck, Jesus Christ. But look, I'm not ruling anything out. Let's just hope. I hope we keep the train moving anyway, and we can see some more dancing. Absolutely.
I sincerely hope to see some more dancing on Saturday night. Ciaran, thank you so much for your time and your honesty. This is a great interview. So I hope you have
really
the confidence both in the cage and outside. Really appreciate the time here, and hopefully we'll chat after the fight in the RDS Saturday night, Cage Wars 188. Thank you very much for your time.
No, thanks very much, lads. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. Again, it scares the living shit out of them, all this stuff, but thanks for that. That was comfortable. I'll probably talk too much, so that's a good sign for you guys.
100%.
Absolutely.
All right, lads, as we steamroll through this card, it's great to hear from a couple of fighters thrown in the mix about their thoughts on their fights, along with our thoughts as well. Andy, I'm going to stop off with you again. Let's talk Matthew Elliott versus Kenny Mokhonoana for a minute, because this is a classic domestic battle. FAI against SBG HQ. We've got SBG, obviously, as we said at the start of the podcast, back in, and it sets up fights like this, which I'm happy to see, and it's much needed too. I mean, I thought a lot of what Irish mixed martial arts was built upon, and to get us to this moment here was fights like this, was fights like Ciaran Brady and Grosjean, these top Irish talents taking on each other at pivotal moments in their careers. Matthew Elliott 4-2 in his career, has had a little bit of an up and down career. Obviously, 2 wins, 2 losses, 2 wins in his professional career, and Kenny coming at a crossroads in his career as well, where this is a super important fight. Obviously took the fight in January and the PFL, and picked up a tough loss against Ibrahimov tough challenge there. He's coming off the back of 2 losses as well, obviously previously to that with a Josh O'Connor loss. So this is a big moment here for Kenny. And, Matthew Elliott is going to be the guy who wants to try and continue the misery for Mokhonoana coming in here. And it's a stylistic matchup that really whets the appetite here. And I know that you're buzzing for this one.
You started to say, Andy, let's talk about Kenny Mokhonoana versus Matt Elliott, and I said, don't mind if I do, because this is one to speak plainly, and I don't mean this by any means in any way disrespectful to either Kenny or Matthew, but like when you look at this card and you see who's on it, like it's very, very easy for any fighter to get lost in the chaos that is. There's so many Irish fighters competing here, and there's a lot of Irish fighters who are either kind of say at the championship level or are knocking on the door or are undefeated, unblemished records that have broken onto the professional scene. Neither Matt or Kenny are any of those things right now. It's a 4-2 guy versus a 5-2 guy. Both have had a couple of losses. Matt obviously had the stint on the Octagon reality show. Kenny was over in PFL and he's now in Cage Warriors. So in theory, it shouldn't really be the fighters that your eyes are immediately drawn to on this card, because there's so many other fighters to focus in on. But when you throw in a gym versus gym fight, SBG versus FAI, when you throw in the fact that the two lads have been throwing barbs at each other online, they don't like each other, and I keep coming back to this fight, and I cannot wait for it. It's fair play to Kenny for taking this fight, because a lot of people, you could make the argument, right? Kenny is coming off the back of 2 losses here. And the way that he lost was he was taken down, and especially in his most recent fight, he was dominated on the ground. And when we look at Matthew Elliott, he is a guy who's competed for Team Great Britain in both judo and wrestling. When we saw him last in a domestic matchup, it was against Ryan Shelley, and of course it was that controversial fight where he essentially laid on Ryan Shelley. Obviously Ryan did some damage from the bottom, and there was a whole controversy around the decision, but the optics of the fight where Matt on top of Ryan the entire fight, his bread and butter is grappling. And for looking at this fight, you would think, well, Matt's just going to take Kenny, the game plan would be Matt's just going to take Kenny down. And then you look and see, well, what has Matt done to evolve since that Ryan Shelley fight? And you can see his evolution. You can see his finishing ability. It's right there in front of you when you look at his last 2 fights, which he finished by submission. So not only can he can strike, he can take you down, and he can submit you. You're thinking, Jesus, is this the right fight for Kenny to be taking right now? But I respect the shit out of him taking it, because if he can go in here and beat a guy like Matthew Elliott, who I actually rate quite highly, and I think despite him having I can't remember if he's 4-2 or Kenny's 5-2, or if it's the opposite. I think he's anyway, I think he's 4-2.
Matthew is 4-2.
So
and Kenny is 5-2.
For a guy who's a 4-2 record, I actually think that Matt Elliott is on the perfect trajectory right now in his career, where he's had to come through a little bit of adversity. He's seen some holes maybe in his game, and he's starting to round them out. And we're really seeing the next level of Matt Elliott. If Kenny Mokhonoana can go in here and beat him, that's a big scalp to take, in my opinion. And I'll be very, very impressed. But I can't wait to see it, because look, up until the 2 losses, Kenny was looking fucking brilliant in that Bellator cage. He was a finisher. He was looking fantastic. So if he can get back to those ways, then it'll be a barn.
I wonder if the time may be away from the cage, like when he spoke to us ahead of that last fight as well. A lot of uncertainty in his career. He didn't know where he was going to be fighting, a lot of disappointment, and you can kind of get, down in yourself maybe, or lose a little bit of focus. I'm not saying that he lost a bit of focus going into that one, but it seems what he's done is he's piggybacked off that last defeat. I would imagine just stayed in camp, stayed in shape, and this lines him up perfectly to try and get him back into the win column,
And look, Ibrahimov, he's a quality fighter.
Top talent, top
so it's not like he went in there and got dominated by, Joe Soap up the road or whatever. Like he was in against a really, really good fighter there as well.
Yeah, 100%. Caoilte, let's talk a little bit about Eimear Darcy, 2-0 in her professional career so far. She comes in against Daniela Sanches from Portugal, a 1-on-1. The caliber of performances that Eimear Darcy has been showing in her early professional career, she's kind of been a victim of her own success in many ways, and the difficulties in her getting matched here, but she is matched against Daniela Sanches here coming in. had a good chance to go out there and get a win and go to 3-0. In my opinion, are you looking forward to seeing her getting back in there and performing again?
Yeah, she's looked brilliant every time. Every single time she's gone in there, she's improved, lethal on the feet, and just shows a different level every single time she steps into the cage, as I was saying there. But I think so far, she's not really gotten a good test. I think she's been levels above the two girls she's fought so far in Cage Warriors. And I think this time she's gotten a much, the matchmaking's a lot better. She's got a much better test this time round, and someone who's going to ask those questions that you need to have in the pro game for you to move on to the next level. And this Daniela Sanches, she, from what I've seen, it's been a while. I watched this girl a while back when this fight got announced. Remember, it was cancelled before, and now it's got rescheduled for this card. I remember watching her and thinking, oh yeah, she was a grappler. From what I saw her, she liked to get the fight to the ground. From the brief video I was watching of her last fight, so that's going to offer a different test for Eimear Darcy in this fight. And if she turns up and looks the same way she did in the last two fights, Jesus, she could be in for one of those highlight reels, because the striking in the last two in particular were absolutely top tier. Yeah,
absolutely. And stick with you for another kind of blossoming fella coming in, and a former Owl Triangle of the Year winner, Keogh, who is coming in here after having a frustrating 2024. Really, had one fight there against Cristiano Ribeiro. Comes in here to take on Joe Doyle in an Ireland versus Ireland clash as well. I know that, especially my guy Andy Hickey, big fan of Keogh, believes that he is the top prospect coming through in Cage Warriors, and an exciting fighter, a finisher, a guy who always moves forward and throws an array of shots, a guy to really be looking forward to. And I think when you're talking about the perfect fit here, I do truly feel Keogh is the perfect fit for an organization like Cage Warriors, where when you go in there, you'll put on those exciting fights and you'll get the plaudits for those kind of showcases of skills, and I'm really excited to see Keogh in there and perform here as well.
I completely agree. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry, I know I've been flicking over and back. I didn't.
Andy wants to throw shade about sunbeds again. That's all it was. I'm telling you.
He's mad.
He saw these guys like.
I got very confused. Go on.
No, you're good. You're good. It's easy. I did do double down with Caoilte there, but we'll let you in a second, Andy. We'll let you in a second.
Oh, hey, Caoilte. Yeah, he's perfect for Cage Warriors. He does have a little tendency every now and again where he'll take he nearly has to he'll eat a few shots, and he ends up in these wars. I've seen him in some of the amateur fights he was in were ridiculous, but he's exciting to watch. He's so well rounded. He on the ground he's so slick, and he's very technical and quite awkward on the feet as well. So he's very well rounded. And what I love about this fight is it's another Irish versus Irish fight that's really, really gone under the radar. This Joe Doyle, from what I believe, has this Thai boxing background, been competing in MMA, really gone under the radar for a lot of people, and it's been quite quiet, I guess, from a media front as well. And it'd be great to speak to him eventually now that he's entering his pro career. This guy's got a massive opportunity to upset the apple cart and derail some hype from one of the top Irish prospects that are coming through that came through from the amateur ranks last year. So, I think this fight has the potential to be one of the best on the night. But just purely just got a hunch of it because Keith's an entertaining fights. This guy's got a bit, he got a lot to prove in this one, and I don't know, just have that weird sneaky feeling about it,
You could be talking potential fight of the night contender there in this fight. Stand up, rock 'em, sock 'em.
That's it. But
yeah,
I say potential for the big fights in the main event. I think it'd be the fight of the night for me.
Indeed. We spoke, Andy, about Team KF already and who are being represented in the co-main event. On the undercard, we do have Ryan Shelley, who's in a little bit of limbo right now as we are recording this podcast from the best that we know, Andy. I know you can share the news here as well. A little bit of, I guess his original opponent, Albert Diaz, is being forced out of the fight, and they're currently looking for somebody else right now.
I think Diaz is injured, but I believe they're trying to keep Ryan on the card. So I haven't heard opponents or anything like that. But the latest information that we have as of right now is that they're endeavouring to keep him on the card. So that's all we have. But Albert Diaz is out, but hopefully we see him around. I mean, because you got Ryan, Shelley, and you got James Webb. So another fewer KF representatives than usual, but still some representation on the card for KF in Cage Warriors here. And yeah, like important fight for Ryan. Like it's been up and down for, I suppose, for the Shelley brothers the last couple of years, but obviously Adam's back to winning ways. Ryan had a tough fight there. He's 1-3 in his last 4. But like fighting guys like Tobias Harila, Ryan has always been fighting the tough guys. Really, even if you think back to that Matthew Elliott fight, then he went into Josh Reed, Tobias Harila, Jordy Bax, Callum Parker, and then Nick Bagley. So he's had it's been a tough run the last while, but needs to get back, like to be fair and blunt, like needs to get back to win ways and start to build and not to go on a run if he's to push towards where we thought he was heading towards, which was the Cage Warriors featherweight title, but he's a ways away from that at this point in his run at the moment.
For sure. And I mean, when you look at the team and how Team KF have been performing in 2025, they've been performing sensationally, Andy. And I mean, being in a room with, other fighters who are performing well and are undefeated so far. I think Team KF are undefeated so far in professional mixed martial arts in 2025. Gives you a good deal of confidence, and it gives you an understanding that, why it's important to keep Ryan on this card. Obviously, we're not privy to too much information yet, but it'd be very important for him to kind of, be on this card, get a win, get back into the flow of things, put himself maybe on a path, maybe where he could go towards the title again. Not maybe ideal circumstances here, one way or another. If he is fighting, he's going to have to be taking on a last-minute opponent here as well. But, it will probably give him a great deal of confidence coming in here, knowing that he's in that room with fighters who are performing well, are testing each other well. And I think it's important that he gets to showcase his abilities here on Saturday night. Yeah,
and we've always, just unfortunately for siblings in MMA, they always just kind of get grouped together. So we've always kind of talked about the Shelley brothers, like Ryan and Adam. But with that, Adam kind of went through a tough spell in 2024 where he lost 2 fights on the bounce, was finished in consecutive fights. But then he came back just only last month and had a brilliant performance against Simone Patrici in Italy, I believe. So I'm sure they, you win, whatever saying I'm trying to say, you win with each other, you lose with each other, and they've been riding that kind of wave of momentum together throughout their careers. So perhaps Adam's gone through the tough spell and is now back to winning ways, and I'm sure having seen his brother go through that, then now maybe Ryan can kind of take something from that and momentum leading into his own fight now. Assuming and hoping that he's kept in the card for Saturday. Yeah.
Indeed. Let's shift on over to Team Rhino real quick before we maybe shoot over and listen to what Max has to say about his fight, Caoilte. And obviously we spoke a little bit about Adam Darby already. Jamie Bissett also on the card against Charlie Falcao. And really, Jamie came in and burst on to the scene in his last Cage Warriors fight and put on a tremendous performance, in my opinion, and hasn't been seen since, and is kind of rattling into this one again. And I'm really excited to see him going back in there and going to work again. A tremendous talent there coming from Team Rhino and to fit the bill. I mean, with Adam Darby as well. Talk to me about those 2 fighters and those 2 fights.
Jamie Bissett turned up to the last card, made his pro debut, one of the performances of the night, and then just left us wanting for another. What's it been, a year? Jesus. And yeah, I'm buzzing for that one. He for his pro debut, he was coming into that off the back of 3 losses and comes out and looked at home in the pro ranks against a tough fight as well. And this one's going to be no different. Charlie Falco, Charlie Falco's 6-4. I think direct is it 6-4? Sorry now. But no slouch. Plenty of experience fighting 5-minute rounds over 3 5-minute rounds, and he's going to be tough. He's had a few tough fights all the way through amateur and pro, and now, but Jamie, he's got all that wealth of experience from the amateur ranks, and now he's got And a win here, kind of launches him up a little bit, being someone so experienced early on. And I'm a big fan of the matchmaking here. So good to see him go in there now and see if he can even best that performance that he had last year. Or is it last year at Cage Warriors?
If I may, to go back to my old ways back in the day, where I'd be the topology police. I'd say. I don't like. I'll be blunt. I've never seen Charlie Falco fight, but as I look at his topology here, I see a lot of wins against fighters with not amazing records.
He beat the same lad that Kenna beat there last night. Actually,
Okay. All right. Yeah. So like the reason why I bring it up, he's 10 pro fights. But I think, I'm going to go out and say, you can call me an Irish. I think Jamie Ababis is going to go out there and show some levels as far as opposition on Saturday night.
I do too. I think we're going to see something similar from Adam Darby as well, lads. What do you reckon coming in here? Had a lot of hand injuries and other things that would have kind of slowed him down. Coming in against Thomas Langowski. Apologies, Denny, if I butchered that one. But Adam himself, obviously... we haven't seen him since November 2023, so it's been such a long time. He's had a couple of fights that have fallen out, but he's right back in the mix here, and I'm sure he's chomping at the bit to go in here and put on a performance and remind everybody how good he is as well. Caoilte.
Yeah, he's over and living the life at the moment in California, training at the MMA Academy, and all the guys training out there at the moment seem to be like the level they're showing in the cage is really something else. Like, you've got another one on the card there, that's Jason Blair. No, just a random one thrown in there, not sure why, but anyway. He gets lumped into some cards every now and again, but once again, these guys that are training over there at the moment, it's been, they're fully focused on MMA and then competing, and it's been a while. He's been out, but he's back to make everyone remember just how much of a prospect and how he is, because beforehand we were, go on, Andy.
No, I was going to say, I'd say he's buzzing to fight on this card because I remember the last one, he was there watching from cage side with his arm in a cast, if I recall correctly.
And that injury happened so close to the fight as well, I believe, as well, so to be so close and then have it taken away from you. There's a lot of I would expect Adam to go out there now and probably dust this fella away inside 3 rounds, to be honest. I think he's going to have a lot of pent up frustration and eagerness to go out there and put on a show.
They call him the most tanned Irishman since Keith Keogh.
The plank, isn't that what they? Well, he's out there.
Which one's natural? Probably neither.
San Diego. You'll have to ask that one on the night, maybe, Andy. You'll have to get the two of them side by side.
I feel like fake tans are perfectly acceptable to be throwing accusations around that.
That's shocking.
You'll be getting no interview.
I'm going to set up an Instagram account that's just like the is he on the sunbeds alert, targeting MMA fighters.
Call it the UV light profile. Scott Harvey, Andy, talk to me about Scott Harvey. Obviously he came out and put on a great performance last time. We seen him April 6, 2024 against Enrico Di Gangi at Cage Warriors 170. Coming in here against another undefeated prospect from the UK, Leon Arms. A good chance here for Scott Harvey to rack up another win. He moves to 5-0, and in the featherweight bantamweight, is this featherweight or bantamweight? Featherweight.
I think he moved up. He was moving up.
Yeah, this is featherweight now. Yeah, so I mean, in a pretty, excuse my language, in a pretty shit hot featherweight division right now, and a lot of featherweight talent on this card in general. Scott Harvey can move to 5-0 and really put himself into the mix there and really blast towards, either a number one contender fight or, maybe put his hat into the ring for a title fight with an impressive win here as well. It's exciting to see him back on the card.
100%. Scott has looked brilliant. I thought he's leveled up each time we've seen him in there, and I feel like the progression of his opponents has been solid too. Going from he's a guy who's fought. Like, he's been training for donkey's years now under Owen Roddy and then since up in FAI now. And what I see from this matchmaking is this is a real like if I'm trying to put myself in the mind of Ian Dean, this is a real test fight for both fighters, because Leon Arms, I believe, is out in that MMA Fight Academy over in San Diego as well. So like, you know, that's obviously, you know, there's kind of adjacent to Cage Warriors to an extent.
The
so like,
level of performances that have been coming out of there, Andy, like to back up your point there, have been pretty fucking good. You know, the likes of Teddy Stringer and you know, Adam, who's been over there as well. They're, you know, there's a good stable of fighters over there, and they're you know, the ability that they're showcasing when they come into fight has been fairly high level. And
it's like, to speak plainly, it's a boil and run like academy thing. So like there's stock there where, like, you know, obviously they want lads like that to succeed. So to put him in there against a guy like Scott Harvey, like that's a serious risk on their part. And similarly for Scott Harvey, like these are two really, really solid fighters that are going head to head. So I think it's brilliant matchmaking by Ian Dean. I think it's a real test fight for both lads, and I think it's one where both they probably each needed to see like where, you know, which of them will rise to the occasion and kind of take that next leap, where you could be looking, you know, a win for either of these guys puts them into the like Solomon Simon category, where his last win got it. Maybe not quite there, maybe one fight away from that, but like moving towards, you know, the bigger fights where then you're getting closer to kind of being able to you know, make a case for your title contention. Maybe not quite there, but that might have been a bit of a stretch, that comparison. But I think a win here, you know, then another big win, and then you can start to be like, right, you know, I'm one of the guys in this division, and I'm, you know, on course for a title shot.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't agree more. There's a kind of under the radar great fight there, great matchup as well. Conor McCarthy, fight week and fight pullouts go hand in hand, Caoilte. And unfortunately for Conor McCarthy, he's had another one. He's had another last minute pullout. And his original opponent, Sulio Hiljaz, has pulled from the fight. Currently, some things as we're recording this and working out in the background, we're not ready to announce anything yet, but they are working to bring in another opponent, another last minute opponent for Conor McCarthy. I was like, fuck. I sent him a message when he found out that his fight pulled out, and I was like, Jesus, that's a nightmare, Conor. And he just messaged me back and said, hey, Ian, this is not my first rodeo. So he's well used to it at this stage, and hopefully he does get matched up. But it'll be exciting to see. You know, I think, you know, as a package deal, you know, we'll kind of talk to Max in a couple of minutes about his fight, but, you know, that's why I kind of labeled it to Max. And, you know, himself and Max have been kind of like this package prospect deal that's been coming up through a few amateur cards and a couple of domestic cards here in Ireland, and now they share the Cage Warriors card as well. Both fond of last minute opponents, and, you know, fingers crossed Max's is still in place, but Conor is dealing with another last minute change, but he says he's well used to it this time, and he treats moments like this like water off a duck's back. But I'm hoping everything works out for him and we get to see him competing inside the Cage Warriors cage on Saturday night.
Same as, yeah, because you'd be sickened when you see these things, but he's got the attitude of just, look, used to it. It's a shame that he is, but yeah, look, I think if this happened on a regional show, you'd be like, well, there's a high chance that fight isn't happening. But when it comes to Cage Warriors, they're very good at pulling out the bag last minute, and whatever's going on in the background at the moment, and hopefully if stuff can get done, it'd be just fantastic to see him stay on the card, because he's a very always exciting fights, great to watch in the cage. And yeah, I think it'd be brilliant for him to get an exposure to a massive, I think anyone in Irish MMA already knows him, but just to that crowd, and to get the pop off the crowd if he can deliver the performances that we know he has in the past. I think it'd be brilliant, and I think it'd be important for Cage Warriors to keep him on the card as well.
Yeah, absolutely, it would be. And obviously, you know, I'm sure you were excited to see Conor in action as well, as you have seen many times before. Him and Max on the card. I think two really good prospects there that whet the appetite early on in the card in the RDS, Andy.
I very much am. I was kind of thinking there, like how it's not exactly apt, because anyway, the Ian Garry and Paul Hughes, we back in the day we used to compare them and be like, who's better or whatever. And I feel like we could be on a similar course for for Conor McCarthy and Max Lally because of their proximity, their trajectory. Now, that being said, I actually don't think that's fair, because I don't think that's fair to the vast array of other prospects that are out there in the country. It's more just their proximity, I suppose, to each other, because I feel like at the time it was I felt like Ian and Paul were kind of they were the ones leading the dance, and it was like a clear dividing line to the rest, if I'm honest. But I don't think that's the case here necessarily with Max and Conor. I think there's so much talent out there at the moment that it's very difficult to separate a lot of them. And I suppose the next 18 months to 2 years will naturally do that for us, because we'll get to see them compete, and the cream will rise to the top, and the still great cream, but like maybe slightly not as good cream, will be like maybe just like slightly underneath them on the pecking order.
Like a bad pint of Guinness. Like a bad pint of Guinness sometimes when you don't get that creamy head. But let's head over and talk to Max Lally. Gotta say, I lead the charge here. Do not do as good a job as I did, as Caoilte did the last time, and speaking to him, but we do have a good chat with him nonetheless. And ahead of a fight that, when you're talking about up and coming prospects, this is a pretty high level fight. Max Lally against Alex Sarmantidis. Let's head on over and hear what Max has to say about that fight. And now we'd like to welcome back Max Lally to the Ould Triangle podcast. Just a couple of days out from his Cage Warriors debut against Alexis Sarmantidis. Max, it's been a long time coming. I mean, the announcement came that you had signed for Cage Warriors, I believe September last year it was. You've had to wait a couple of months. You've had an interesting couple of months in the lead up to this fight as well. But all the worlds have aligned. And I mean, to be making your Cage Warriors debut in Dublin, I think, you got to be happy about that. And I'm sure you're looking forward to it as well.
100%, Ian. There's not too much opportunities come knocking like this, you know what I mean? To be able to make your debut for Cage Warriors, especially on home soil, in front of me loved ones, in front of everyone that support me. So, no, it's a great opportunity, and super, super happy, and I'm really looking forward to next weekend.
I think I might know the answer to this already. Well, obviously, yourself and Conor have been kind of in sync. A couple of amateur fights, obviously sharing a card for a couple of professional fights as well. And 2 year kind of signings came kind of simultaneously as well. Although we've got to see Conor have a spin out in Cage Warriors already, you've had to wait a little bit longer. Has that been a blessing in disguise for you, or would you have liked to got a spin out of Cage Warriors sooner?
Well, I'll tell you what the hold off was. To be honest, if I had my mind made up on what weight I was going to fight at, I probably would have got a spin out before the end of the year went out, to be honest. But what I wanted to do was, I just wanted to make sure there was no stones unturned, and I wanted to see how I'd perform and how I'd feel at the lower weight class 135. I attempted getting the weight down and stuff like that, but a lot of attributes that I have at 145, they just simply weren't there at 135. I fight a certain way, and it was almost like changing stylistically, doing the weight cut. As well as that, I kind of made a kind of decision as well, where it was like, if I'm fighting 135, it's probably realistically gonna be 2 fights a year, maybe. Whether at featherweight I can be active, So obviously the last half of last year was dedicated to making that decision. And then as soon as the new year hit, we concluded our decision with me and John Conor, my nutritionist, and we decided to remain at 145, and just decided to put on a bit more mass and a bit more size for the weight, and really try fill out for the weight, So obviously then Ian Dean as well had told us when I signed that they were planning a Dublin card April, May, and that I would definitely be on it as well, So it was a no-brainer, you know what I mean. But it's great to be able to debut on home soil, definitely.
100%. Yeah, look, you said that, we had talked the last time you were speaking with us too, and your weight wasn't up in the air. You said you were going to do a couple of test cuts and everything like that. Obviously, based off what you said, you'd done that. What were some of the key factors, in making that cut on performance level that made you make the decision to not do 135 and remain at 145?
So the biggest one was I was getting super lean. I was getting down. I think the lowest my weight was I think it was 69.3 kilos, and I was very lean. Now I looked very good, but I think as well as that, I kept getting in this kind of period of weight cuts. I kept getting ringworm and I kept getting staph, and I wasn't sure if it was a thing of my immune system being so low because my body fat percentage was so low. So obviously I was missing training here and there, and then my output in training wasn't the same. I'd be a guy in fight camp that would be getting at least 15 sessions in a week, 15, 16 sessions in a week. And some people might think that's maybe a little bit too much, but that's always been the set standard for me while I'm in fight camp, you know. And I couldn't meet it, you know. I couldn't train as much as I was. Energy levels were low, and then I would up the calories, and when I would up the calories for a certain amount of time, the weight would just stick and it would not move. Like ideally, they like most kind of nutritionists, and like there's kind of guidelines to cutting weight that you maybe shouldn't be doing more than 10% of your body fat. It would have been a 12% cut for me to get down to 135. At the guideline weight, and I couldn't even get lean enough down to that, you know. In sparring as well, I'm a guy who likes to really kind of push the pace and drown people with me pace, but I was the kind of the bigger, slower fighter, you know what I mean? So I wasn't trying to like volume punch as much as I usually do. It was almost like the bigger fighter, so trying to land the bigger shots. Don't get me wrong, it was great to be able to make this decision, because it's not something that I'd want to have lingering in my head if it was something that I might be able to do, or you know, I rather just know myself, because I've always been this way, that I really do take pride in how I prepare for things. So it's I knew it was either going to be 145 or it was going to be 135, but due to, you know, all the kind of tests and how I was feeling during the kind of cuts and stuff like that, I just decided to scrap it and just put a bit of size on for the weight, you know. So that was the kind of whole reasoning and stuff behind it.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I kind of think it shows your maturity. And I think in the maturity that you've always had in your preparation and your approach to mixed martial arts as well, that you wanted to figure out all of that rather than maybe just take a chance, take a fight at 135, do the weight cut there. It mightn't have worked out for you that well. You know, and then it could have cost you maybe a couple of other opportunities as well. You don't want to be learning on the job. You want to figure out what path you want to go, and then you take that path then. I think that's the approach you took for this stage of your career anyway.
Exactly. Like I'll always say I carry myself to a very high standard. I'm a professional, you know. So I'm not gonna be coming in underprepared, missing weight, you know. Obviously, like I'm that's not the type of person I am, you know. I'm gonna make sure everything is done 100% in accordance and the way it should be done, you know. And that was the whole point. Listen, I had to take I fought last July. And, you know, kind of from, I'd say, about maybe mid-August, I really started that cut. And that cut started from mid-August right up until about November. And I think we scrapped it then kind of mid-November, when it was we knew it was, you know, it was probably doable, but, you know, performance wouldn't be up to standards. And I don't care about being the bigger guy, if that makes sense. You know, that's not it at all. But what I care about is performance. If it was the case where I was performing twice as good at 135 than 145, the cut would have been done there and then. But that wasn't the case, you know. So I'll always hold myself to that kind of standard, you know. Like, I'm a professional fighter, and I'll always carry myself in that way.
Yeah, it's a good way to look at it as well. And of course, there's also another factor when it comes to that too, Max, is that, you know, when you're dedicating your time to camp and you're trying to get down in weight, your nutrition, your diet, your strength and conditioning, that can kind of always maybe overlap some of the skill acquisition that you need to also grow as a fighter as well, when you have to focus a little bit more on your weight and everything like that. Did you notice that when you were trying to trial in that 135 move?
Definitely. No, 100%. It because at the end of the day, the way I was kind of seeing it was the weight was the more important thing, and after kind of, trialing that for a few months, don't get me wrong, I was still getting good training and good sessions in, but not it's not how the sessions should be, if that makes sense, where you're kind of thinking about what should I be having before this, what should I be eating after this, and instead of just getting stuck in and getting involved in the techniques and getting the kind of the brain tuned in almost, which is how I've always done it, and obviously when I kind of made the decision to go back up to, well, not go back up, I didn't even get down to 135, but stay at 145. It was almost like straight away I could see the improvements already. Whether sometimes when you're really trying to get that weight down and really trying to kill yourself to make a weight, I think it does take away from skill acquisition and actually just getting better at the sport. How you get better at the sport is you fight and you train as frequently as possible. That's how you get better. You do your study, you watch your tape, you watch your fights and stuff like that. But majority of the time, it's training and fighting. That's how you get better. And that's probably another big reason why I took a step back and decided not to do it, because it was just a case of me not getting as much out of my sessions than I usually would. So obviously, for me, at this stage of my career as an early pro, skill acquisition is the most important thing. It's above everything else, every other aspect of training. Skill acquisition, being in the gym, training MMA, that is the most important thing, So that's the kind of approach that I've had for this whole camp, and it's gone super well. Weight hasn't been an issue, nothing like that. The only thing I've thought about is training and getting better, So it's a much better mind frame to be in, rather than worrying about weight and dreading weight cuts and stuff like that,
Yeah, big time, and talking skill acquisition, how you get that skill acquisition is also very important as well, and something that you've always done is kind of lived a nomadic lifestyle. You've gone and trained at a bunch of different gyms and everything like that. It led you over to Thailand. It led you into an interaction with Alexander Volkanovski, and it probably led to one of the biggest fight camps of your career, being able to go over there and work with him in getting him prepared for the Diego Lopez fight. How did all of that come into fruition at Max? It was pretty cool from an outside perspective, to see Alexander Volkanovski, see him all the videos, seeing you in there, putting him to work in all the videos as well. It must have been pretty surreal for you to be a part of all of that too.
It was honestly, guys, it was such a great experience. I've always, even before I kind of met Alex, I've always admired him as a fighter, how he carries himself, and obviously has such a great fight style to watch, But how it came about more or less was I'd moved around with him, I think maybe 2 years prior. I think I had a little move around with him, like a sparring session. It was like one singular session when he had his first fight with Islam Makhachev coming up, and I had a little move around with that, so he was kind of familiar with me. But I was just over training in Bangtao in Thailand with the guys there, and the guys just kind of brought me into the office and asked would I want to give him a kind of hand with a cardio session that he does. I jumped on it, so he did the cardio session, and then we done some drills and stuff after. And then them cardio sessions kind of turned into sparring sessions. He was only there for, I think, a little over like a week and a half, 10 days, 12 days or something like that. And I got training with him like for majority of them days. So anyway, he went back to Australia, and then I think it was the last kind of week of it was the last week of February, start of March. I kind of got a text off Frank, the wrestling coach out of Bangtao, just asking that I want to go over and give Volk a hand for his last few weeks of fight camp, preparing for Diego. So it was a no-brainer for myself to go over there and learn off one of I'm not going to say one of the best featherweights. I think the best featherweight the UFC has seen the past number of years. So it was an unbelievable experience, guys. Yeah.
Yeah, especially where you are at in your career as well, to get over there and get that experience as well. Not just training with a UFC fighter, but training with elite level, one of the greatest of all time to do it, in many people's opinions, and then getting him prepared for a title fight too. So that's, you're putting yourself in an elite level situation there, What does a camp like that look like from your level? And did it open your eyes to what you should be doing in terms of preparation and the way you approach fights too?
To be honest, I always do say this. I found going over there was extremely reassuring because they have their own little twists on how they do certain things over there. But all in all, it is very similar, if that makes sense, to how I train at home. And it's like it kind of I suppose sometimes people don't really get into it, but it's like this is a sport where you just need to get stuck in 24/7. You know what I mean? It's really that simple. Like it's not if you show up and you train your arse off 365 days a year, every day, you know what I mean? You put work in every day, you're bound to go places. And Volk's there because of his work rate. Like there's nothing else there. Like he said it to me. He wasn't the most talented when he started out. He started at 22 as a rugby player trying to stay fit in between seasons. That's how he got introduced to MMA. He started at 22 years of age, and through his work rate, obviously he got to the UFC and then obviously got the title, defended it, lost it, regained it. You know what I mean? So it was really eye-opening in that perspective, you know what I mean? But obviously for me to be there for, I get to see how the best in the world prepares, you know what I mean? That was a huge eye-opener, and maybe it pointed me in a direction where it's like, okay, Max, you're doing a lot of this, but you mayn't necessarily be doing this area as much, and Volk really focuses on this, you know what I mean? So that was a great insider to structure my sessions back home. And what I kind of did over there was, like, Volk knew that I had a fight myself coming up, so him and his coaches and his team in freestyle MMA, they were all super catering, they were allowing me to jump into the cardio sessions and stuff like that. Obviously, when Volk was sparring, I was trying to imitate Lopez as best as I could. I watched a little bit of tape on him and was imitating him as much as I possibly could. But like it was a great camp to be a part of for 4 weeks. A great environment, great people. The Aussies are they're like us Irish. You know what I mean? They're sound cunts. You know what I mean? So it was great to experience me time over there. And obviously super happy to be back home and just ready for this fight next week now.
Yeah, and I'm sure like if the opportunity came up again, you'd be over there again in a heartbeat, eh?
100%. No, 100% would be. I'm not sure what's next for him. He was talking about like Mozart and Yair when we were over in Australia, but I'm fairly sure that he wants to fight two more times this year. That was the kind of impression I got off him. What he was saying was he's not getting any younger, so he'd like to get two more in this year. So no, it was really cool to obviously get to meet him, and all in all, guys, he's an amazing fighter, but he's an even better person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when I was over there, he looked after us super well. Me, Hassan, and Frank, the guys that were brought over from Bangtail, like he really looked after us super well. You know what I mean? It was great, and just how he is as a person, his characteristics and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I almost admired him for how he was as a person more so than how he is as a fighter, if that makes sense. So it was obviously great to pick his brain and try with him for 4 weeks. But yeah, my guy's super nice and friendly guy.
Yeah, he's definitely a fantastic role model and a great kind of personality for the sport as well. When you watch the fight, did the fight play out similar enough to what way you were drilling, sparring, and getting ready in the gym for it when you were watching it, Max?
It actually did. So basically, how it was kind of broken down in my eyes anyway when I was watching it. How I was kind of approaching Lopez's style, I was kind of trying to imitate Lopez as more so the aggressor. You know what I mean? How he comes forward with the hands up high, how he dips off to the left hand to throw his hooks. Like Lopez is a very long fighter, but he actually doesn't really use his length. He fights very short for such a long guy, Whether with Volk is a kind of shorter guy, but he has an insanely long reach, so it's very deceiving. So that's how I kind of imitated Lopez. Obviously, Lopez is super active off his back as well, so we done plenty of positional stuff in triangles and arm bars in the case that was going to go. But for all in all, I knew that Lopez has serious power. We knew he could take big shots, you know. But I knew if it came down to volume, that Volk would definitely outstrike him, you know. I think Volk wanted to grapple him a bit more at the end of the first round. He kind of got him down and, you know, landed a bit of ground and pound and stuff like that. But I thought Volk was gonna grapple a little bit more, but he was winning all the exchanges on the feet, so he didn't really. I don't think he really needed to go there, you know. Obviously, the end of the second round, he got caught with a double jab right hand, and then the kind of middle of the fourth round, I think he got caught with a right hand. The glove grazed his eye. He couldn't really see over for a little bit of the round. But I think I don't know what you guys scored it, but I had a 4-1 for Volk. That's what I kind of scored it. But it was a great fight. Obviously, when you kind of train with someone and know them, the nerves are a bit more kind of, you know, going and stuff like that. But
yeah, you feel a little bit more a part of it, I guess.
You do, definitely. But man, I was super happy for him, man. I was so happy. I was so happy to see him get his belt back, and fucking fair play to him, you know.
Yeah, it's great. It was a great story, and of course for you, it gives you a big lift heading into your fight. And do you think you had a question there?
No, I was just going to ask, like, have you any plans to head back out to train with them?
I wasn't told anything directly off Volk and stuff like that about going back over. He did message me. Well, Brad Riddell messaged me after the fight and said, "Here, Volk's after really thanking you. He said he really appreciate the training you got in him for the past few weeks." So he was definitely satisfied. But I always find with them fight camp kind of things, it's always last minute. You know what I mean? It could be a case of me finding out that I might be going back over a week before I actually go back over. It's always very very short notice. You know what I mean? So I'll definitely keep my I want to fight 2 more times this year. You know, so it'd be great for me to get back over and, you know, obviously get more experience training with him as well as that. You know,
Max, to head back towards Cage Warriors direction and Cage Warriors 188 in particular, you know, from the outside in, and, you know, the event has kind of, you know, been talked about for quite some time and has slowly built itself. The magnitude of the event, for me at least, and I would imagine for you as well, it seems pretty huge coming in here. It seems that we're at a really pivotal moment in Irish mixed martial arts. You know, we've got a card that's steeped with Irish talent there. And you're leading the charge as one of the top prospects in the country right now. Does this feel like a big moment in time in your career?
No, definitely. It definitely does. You know, this is the biggest fight in my career to date, you know. Obviously, you know, the pressure and stuff and the stakes are a lot higher, you know what I mean? But I always just remind myself why I do it, and it's simply because I like to fight, you know what I mean? It's now for me, it's no different than the little GAA halls I always fought in, you know what I mean? It may be a bit of step up in competition and regards to spectators and stuff like that, you know what I mean? But I'm approaching it the same as I always have, you know what I mean? And every fight I go into, no stone is left unturned. No questions are, you know, could I have done more? Every time I get into fight week, I'm almost overworked with all the training that I've done, you know. So the same approach as always. And I'm just, to be honest, I know this fight is, you know, I'm looking to go in here on my debut and make a serious statement. You know what I mean? This is the big leagues. You know what I mean? I don't want to be going out and giving an underwhelming performance. So I've made sure that I've almost killed myself this camp to make sure that I you know, provide for all the fans and let them know that every time I'm on a card, they're gonna get their money's worth. You know what I mean? So in that case, I'm going out there next week to definitely make a huge statement, and you know, just solidify myself on that featherweight roster. You know.
100%.
Max, I remember seeing you before, and you were saying that you always wanted to be tested, and you wanted the hard fights. You wanted to be kind of pushed and to be able to show all your skills. And I guess in your first few pro fights, it's we've seen a lot of them, but we've not seen you test it. Do you think that this one is finally this will be the first real big test as a pro for you?
100%. Definitely. I think it's definitely the kind of first test that I will have. I think I've been tested a bit more on the kind of amateur. I had a few amateur fights and stuff like that, but unfortunately, at pro, it wasn't meant to be. I've always known me level, and I know how good I am. You know what I mean? And to be honest, I always match the level of the fighter that I fight. So the more high level, the better. This guy Alexis, he is good. He's on a 3-fight win streak. He's fought some good guys. But like that, I think I'm gonna be too much for him next week, and I'm really looking forward to just showing everyone that it's like, okay, like obviously I haven't had the fights that I should have had at pro. No fault of my own. There are kind of all the last minute pullouts and stuff like that, but I've been staying ready for these types of opportunities, and I'm just ready to go out and show me level. Like, you know what I mean? It's just kind of the waiting's the issue now. Just waiting for I'm ready to go tomorrow.
Come here, it could be a really big weekend for you as well. For I guess your career, but also from a fan perspective. If you go out on a Saturday and you get a win, I think the following day you could watch. You're a Liverpool fan, right? Before this goes very, very south.
Oh, yeah.
Had to clarify there. But like you could go out, win on Saturday, and then would Liverpool win the title because they need 3 points now on Sunday. That would really top off the weekend.
3 points now on Sunday, and that's them. Yeah, that's them with the title. Now it could be, but to be honest, it's like I do like the football. You know what I mean? But I can't think about anything else at the moment. To be honest, lads, I can't even think about football. I can't think. I know there's Conor Ben against Eubank that night, and as well as that, Garry's fighting Prates as well. I can't think of anything else bar this fight on Saturday. To be honest, lads, I'm super excited to be a part of a card. But to be honest, this card reminds me of like a Bama card back in the day. You know what I mean? Where it's just all the prospects from all the gyms across the whole country on one singular card. We haven't had that for a long time. You know what I mean? We haven't had this for a very, very long time. It's always kind of with the regional Irish shows, all the prospects are all kind of usually segregated at pro, and they're all headlining different shows all around Ireland. But this time, it's like all the prospects they're all on the one card. Like, you know what I mean? There hasn't been a card like this in Ireland in a very long time. So I think that's what I'm most excited for, to be a part of something like that. I think this could be a card that people look back at in a few years and really, really take notice and are in awe of all these, top level Irish fighters all fighting on the same card. You know what I mean? But obviously with my fight, I'm really looking to put an exclamation mark on this performance, and everyone that leaves the RDS on Saturday night, I really want them to know who I am and know my name. Like, you know what I mean?
Max, I'm smiling here because I was trying to think. I was like, what did I ask Max here now? And I kind of see you as a purist of Irish MMA, a bit of a historian, someone who has since his teenage years has been immersed in this Irish MMA culture, looking up to the greats of yesteryears, etc. And you've kind of given a brilliant preview for the card there, because I was wondering, there's so many of these cards that have come to Ireland, like both Cage Warriors, PFL, etc. And sometimes, from our perspective, it's hard to kind of at times it can be hard to differentiate them, because you've just a card with a load of Irish fighters on it. But you're essentially kind of saying there it's the prospects aspect of it. Is that what you see is different here?
Yeah, that's what I see it as. You don't usually get there's so many up and comers and so many top level Irish prospects on the card. Obviously you have James Sheehan and then James Webb. I know he's not Irish, but he trains in Team KF. I suppose them guys are a bit more established. But apart from that, it's like I don't know how many featherweight fights there is on it. I think there's 6. You have so many great fights. You have 2. You have Matthew Elliott against Kenny Mokhonoana. You have Alexander O'Sullivan against Dara Thorman. There's so many just barn burners of fights on the card. You know what I mean? And the last time that I remember watching a a card in Ireland would have been in the Three Arena. I might have been maybe 12, 13 years of age. At Bama, where you had all the guys out of Team Rhino, all the guys out of SBG Ireland, you had guys from like all over the country, all prospects that were just all on the same card, like, you know what I mean? And like, you have that hasn't happened at pro level. It does happen at amateur. Like sometimes, like I'll stick on IUR over, I don't know, whatever UFC cards on the weekend because the fights are just like they're barn burners. But as a pro, you know, to be on the same card as so much other Irish pros, it's sick. Like it's so cool because I feel like Ireland hasn't really had that in the past number of years. You know what I mean? That's why I always refer back to them Bama cards, because they had some great fights on back then. Like, you know what I mean?
What do you think of SBG being back in Cage Wars? Because I know, like, we've talked before with you about, like, you fight under the SBG banner, but it's different when it's SBG HQ that are back. Like, it was a different thing, right?
Yeah.
So, like, what you make of that? Like, it's fun. Like, because to me, it's great. Like, they're finally back in. Boyle and Kavanagh have kind of let bygones be bygones, and we're seeing the likes of Costello and as you mentioned, Kenny Mokhonoana with a fight here. What you make of that?
I think it's sick. I think it's the best case for the sport. It's definitely the best case for the sport if you want to try get to the UFC. Cage Warriors is the proving grounds. You know what I mean? It's like if you're not having stellar performances, or you know, you're not kind of at the top end. This is where you fight and you say to yourself, am I UFC caliber or not? This is what Cage Warriors is. You know what I mean? And it's great to finally have, you know, the door open to you know, be able to prove myself. You know what I mean? Because I don't get me wrong, like PFL and stuff is great, but I've always, as a kid, it's just I've always wanted to fight in the UFC. I've always wanted to be a UFC fighter. Like, I never wanted to, you know, fight in any other organization bar the UFC. You know what I mean? So I suppose like money and stuff like that. Like, I don't that's not what gets me up early in the morning. Like, it's this sport, because I know that at some stage in my career I'm going to be fighting at a super high level. So it's like this is where it starts, lads. Like, you know what I mean? It's Cage Warriors. This is where so many it's been a stable for guys getting to the UFC for so many years. So it's like it's a bit of a no-brainer to try get in, but now to finally be able to get in, it's just sick. Obviously, Roddy's fought in Cage Warriors and stuff like that before. He's laced up the yellow gloves, so it's sick to be able to, you know, even like, you know, there's a bit of heritage there, like, you know what I mean. So I'm over the moon to be signed to them, you know what I mean. So it's great that like Graham and Kavanagh sorted out their kind of whatever issues that they had, and I think this is definitely going to be a like a new age for Irish MMA.
Yeah, you kind of what you were speaking about there is kind of teeing me up for, you know, the question I had for you. I'll ask you about the fight. We won't keep you for too much longer now. We know I had you waiting, Max, so I appreciate the time.
Oh,
but
it's all good.
you know, obviously under the Cage Warriors banner, you're working very closely with Ian Dean, who has been responsible for building many stars in mixed martial arts and bringing them and getting them ready for UFC, and you know, many stars that have gone to the UFC that have gone on to become champions and everything like that. In terms of career development and getting the right tests at the right time, there's not too many people, in my opinion, out there as good as Ian Dean at what he does. When you're having conversations with him about your career development, what are those conversations like, or have they happened at all, or do you have an idea on what way you want?
To be honest, Ian speaks to Paul, my manager, you know, so he organised all the fights. But what I asked for was I asked for a good test is what I asked for. You know what I mean? I asked for a good fight for myself. I wanna prove myself, and realistically, it's like with these prospects, it's like I'm gonna be having to wipe the floor with them to get to that next stage. Like, you know what I mean? And I think he picked out a very, very good, you know, like statistically a very good match for myself. You know what I mean? Two young guys, you know, that are looking to establish their name in the Cage Warriors kind of banner. Like, you know what I mean? So I think it's a great matchup. And then you kind of see some of the other matchups that Ian makes. I would agree with you guys. I think he is the best in Europe at what he does. You know what I mean? In regards to stylistic matchups and stuff like that, and he puts on spectacular fights every time, you know. So it's great to be a part of that, like, you know what I mean? And obviously, as you said, it's like there's been so many fighters that have come through the Cage Warriors banner, and through these tests and through these trials and tribulations have made it to the top level. No road is ever straight, you know what I mean? It's always gonna have its twists and turns, you know what I mean? But I'll always keep course and stay on the path. And I'm prepared for these trials and tribulations and these challenges that are gonna be coming within the next few months, you know?
Indeed, indeed. Who do you think is the biggest prospect coming out of Ireland right now in mixed martial arts?
In Ireland, well, like early pro, like what we thought. I was gonna say Paul and Ian, but
I think they're gone a little bit past
a
prospect
little bit
level.
past that. A little bit.
Let's
past
say like
that.
5, 6
5,
fights
6
or
and
less.
0 maybe. Yeah.
5, 6 and 0.
5 or 6 fights don't have to necessarily be undefeated, including yourself, of course.
I gotta be honest. I'm not gonna say myself. I'm trying to think. Put me on the spot here with that one, boys.
Yeah.
Put me on
Yeah,
the
do you know
spot
what?
there.
I
You
respect-
put me
I
on the
respect-
spot there.
I respect you thinking about it, because a lot of people would have just said me.
Yeah.
Of course, me.
Well, of course, I'm going to back myself 100%, but you know, I'm going to give me honest opinion. To be honest, I think I've been very impressed with Solomon King as of late. To be honest,
100%.
I definitely see. That would be my honest opinion. I've been super impressed with Sol. You know, he's put on some great performances, and like that, he's gotten good tests and has rose to the occasion every time. So I think in the Cage Warriors banner anyway, I'm trying to think. Obviously, you kind of have Ciaran Clark and stuff like that. He was supposed to be a part of that world tournament, but I think under the Cage Warriors banner, I think Saul definitely. I think he might be a fight or two away from a title shot. Definitely, like, you know what I mean, with how his performances have been going of late. Like, you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
definitely. I think I definitely have to say Saul.
Yeah.
And
no,
obviously my boy Conor McCarthy as well. Obviously my
Yeah.
bro Conor, but yeah. So that
Conor McCarthy
definitely.
actually wanted to deliver a message here to tell you to lay off the snus. I don't know what that means now. You have to
Did he?
explain it.
Cheeky fucker. He's a cheeky fucker. The snus is the nicotine pouches.
Oh yeah, the Zins.
Yeah,
One of those jobs,
that's what the snus is, man. That's what the snus is. We don't take them. I get off them 4 weeks before the L fight. You know what I mean? So we're all good.
Helps keep the edge off, Max. Helps keep the edge off, man.
That's it. That's it.
You're talking, going back to your
that's
fight.
peak male performance, boys.
There you go. Going back to your fight, Max, we'll finish off with this. Obviously, you said you wanted the test. Alex Sarmantidis, and I've done quite well only to say his name only twice in this interview because I don't want to mess it up, but he is the guy that's going to provide you this test. And you admitted that yourself. He is going to test you. In what way do you feel he's going to test you? And in what way do you feel you're going to test him?
I definitely, for this fight, guys, I have prepared myself for the worst case scenario. I've prepared myself for a 3-round war. I've prepared myself for 15 minutes. And for me, 15 minutes of fighting, it's not that long. Like, you know what I mean? So I think he's a good boxer. He's a judo black belt. He seems to be quite well rounded everywhere. You know what I mean? He has some knockouts. He has some TKO finishes on the ground. But I think my fight IQ is just gonna be a little bit too high for him. I think I'm just gonna be a little bit too much for him in how I approach this fight. And obviously once we touch gloves and everything like that, and we get going, we'll see then. Like, you know what I mean? But I think he's definitely he poses a threat. You know what I mean? Any guy that poses a threat with knockout power, or he's a smaller guy. I think he's like 5'7", 5'6" or something like that. You know, he's good boxing. He's good on the feet. So he definitely poses a threat. But I know I pose as many threats, if not more than Alexis. You know what I mean? So obviously, all respect to him, everything like that. But I'm looking to go in here and wipe the floor with him, to be honest. You know what I mean? That's been the mindset the whole time. I'm ready for any scenario that he comes at me with. You know what I mean? So obviously I'll go in, I'll get me feelers out straight away. But I'm prepared for the worst case scenario, guys. You know what I mean? So I'm really, really looking forward to getting in and just showing the levels that have jumped up since last July. I think that's the big thing,
Yeah. We're certainly looking forward to seeing you back inside the cage at Cage Warriors 188 RDS in Dublin this Saturday night. Monster card, Max. Before we let you go, whip off the cap. Let us see the mullet. Break it
boys,
out. Come on now.
I'll
Break it
turn
out
on the
here now.
lights.
Give us some good
I'll have
light
to
there
turn
now.
up
Let
the
us see that
lights.
mullet.
Yeah,
Look
look
at
at
that
Oh
mullet.
my
Look at that.
God.
My goodness, that's fantastic.
Australia's changed them.
I love
That's it. That's it. Even have the old Ronnie going, lads. But
Yeah,
that needs a bit of work. That needs a bit of work.
I was going to say you have a bit of work to do on that compared to the movie.
I saw the lads in Australia were slagging me, calling it bum fluff and all that. But you know what? It's getting better. It's getting
getting
better. Rome wasn't built in a day. You know what I mean?
November's only 7 months away, Max.
I love it. Max, thanks so much as always for joining us again on the Owl Triangle. It's always a pleasure getting to chat with you ahead of the fight. Wish you all the well this Saturday night, all the best this Saturday night. And I'm sure we'll be talking to you again down the line, my man.
Cheers, guys. Thank you so much for having me on again, guys. Always a pleasure.
Alrighty, great to hear from Max there, and that kind of wraps up our Cage Warrior. I think we did quite well too. We covered every single fighter there. Hopefully, we pretty much every single fighter anyway. So, I mean, a metric ton of Irish talent to get through on that card, and
there's 19 Irish MMA representatives in that card.
That's crazy. It's brilliant. It's brilliant to see. Fantastic, and long may it last, and hopefully this sets the path for another. Obviously, I think we should probably get another Dublin event later on this year, and this will kind of set a lot of things up to progress a lot of the fighters as well. Not the only Irish, 19 on the Cage Warriors card. There's going to be 20, maybe more on Saturday, the 26th. Obviously, the big one is over in UFC Kansas City, where Machado Garry goes in and takes on Carlos Prates in the main event in the welterweight division on short notice. I got to speak to you, Andy, because you spoke to the man himself, obviously, ahead of the fight. You can check that interview out on the SevereMMA channel. You spoke with Ian ahead of that fight, as confident as ever heading into a fight for Ian, and definitely coming off the back of that Shavkat loss. He's eager to go in there and prove a point and prove that he belongs at the top of the welterweight division in the UFC, Andy.
Yeah, he seems to, like, he's been speaking not just to myself, but I heard him on with Ariel as well. Like, he's speaking with a chip. It sounds like he's speaking with a chip on his shoulder, whether he sees it or not. He's always been confident. He's always been, brash and very direct with how he feels, where his skill sets are and compared to other people. And I feel like, as I kind of put it to him in the interview, like, we haven't seen him lose, or we haven't seen him coming off a loss for all the way back to his amateur days is the last time. And now we get to see it at the highest level. And he spent a lot of time kind of saying how, not a lot of time, but he was very clear that he didn't want to fight down the rankings. Like, he was only looking up, he was only looking ahead. And now, albeit he sees this as a really good matchup and one with interest, and he's correct in that a lot of people are high on Carlos Prates and he's an interesting character, and I agree with that, all of that. But it's also been like, right, I'm protecting my spot now, and you may think that you're going to come up and beat me, and you're in the, Prates is in the position of fighting up where Ian was previously, and now he has to protect that spot and prove to everyone that, albeit he lost in a decision to in his last fight, but he's right there at the top of the division still, and he is, as he calls himself, the future, and that he is a future title contender, etc. So, Jesus, like, as far as the fight goes, I can't fucking wait. I think it's an absolute banger. Prates is so dangerous. Ian sees that what he says is that he just has a left hand, and he'll need to stay away from that. And it'll be very interesting to see how he approaches it. If he decides to just use his grappling and all that, but very much looking forward to it. A dangerous fight, but again, we're talking about the changing of Irish MMA and the milestone nature of things. Well, this is also another milestone because it's the first time that Ian Machado Garry will have main evented in the UFC, which is that should not be overlooked, because it's been a long time, dating back to Paddy Hoolan and Lewis Smoke in Dublin, which was almost a decade ago.
Crazy to think that was all back in 2016, I believe that was, wasn't it?
2015, the 24th of October 2015, which is that's taken 10, not quite, but like close to 10 years, 9.5 years. Crazy
is right. Carlos Prates is obviously Caoilte as a Muay Thai connoisseur like yourself. He brings that Muay Thai style in, long limbs, likes to knee, likes those elbows, really uses his length to feed the jab and the cross in to the striking exchanges as well. Can definitely prove some problems here to Ian Garry, but from a technical standpoint, what we've seen from Ian Garry before, especially fighting a southpaw fighter, he definitely has showcased he has the tools to go out there and do the job against a guy like Carlos Prates. Do you feel that Ian kind of matches up well against Carlos?
Yeah, he does. I think he knows rise to the occasion with these fights. We've seen it in kind of every test he's been up against. We've always seen something a little bit new from him, and he, as I said, he rises to the occasion. I think this is one where, the styles kind of line up nicely. Where if he can avoid the power and he can pick off his shots, stick and move a little bit, and avoid just those massive power shots that Prates has, then I think he's more than a good opportunity to win this fight, because he's been top tier. He's been the top tier time he's gotten in the cage recently, and I think if he can go out there and even if he can just show some of that grappling, and take him down, who knows? Because it's one of those fights. I think Ian has all the tools to do it, but Prates is on this absolute wrecking train through the division at the moment, and he's pulled off wins I didn't think he could do, but this could be one he's getting a little bit too early, and I think Ian can get it done here.
Yeah, I'm looking at just kind of the betting there as well. Obviously, a lot of the big story was the mantelpiece of Ian Garry coming into this one. He has the picture of him almost submitting Shavkat Rakhmonov via rear naked choke. You think, looking at the betting odds there, Ian Garry by submission here. I think he always has the takedown in his back pocket against a guy like Carlos Prates, but that by no means makes me feel that I don't think he has the ability to beat Carlos Prates on the feet as well. I think, he has an educated jab. His distance control is very good on the feet as well, but it'll be very, very interesting to see how he deals with being the main event back in the spotlight, and if he can get back into the win column as well. We've got to wrap this up again. I think we have to give an honourable mention before we wrap it up to Cian Cowley, who picked up a fantastic win this past weekend. Lads, maybe I'll go to you, Andy, just to speak about that real quick. I think really good, picked up a title there on the European scene, and good to see Cian back in action as well.
Yeah, brilliant. I thought he looked very dangerous. I mean, his bread and butter Muay Thai, you don't often see fight stops to leg kicks, but I'll say this, what I noticed is that fight was over the first time it went to the ground. The third leg, if you go back and watch this fight, anyone, the third leg kick he landed, your man was in agony from, and was grabbing his leg. Now he managed to get back up. Cian added a big knee, a big shot that dropped him again, and then he finished it with leg kicks. But it was long over before that. But yeah, great to see him back. What I'd just like to see, like I haven't talked to Cian in a good while as far as an interview setting or anything like that, but I'd be interested to know what he wants to get out of fighting from in MMA anymore. Like, does he have aspirations of making it to a specific promotion or money or whatever? Because I'd just be curious to know. And then if he does, I just want to see him fighting actively, because we see him fight and then we might not see him for another good while. But it's looked good to see him back. A great win. Looked fucking vicious, and what more can you ask for really, other than a finish like that? So yeah, fair play. Good to see Cian back.
Yeah, 100%. Right before we wrap it up, Caoilte, Danny Coore has a card going on. Right, is it on the same weekend as all of this? Is it on the 26th, 27th as well? Yeah, this Sunday coming. Yeah, so right after obviously all the action on Cage Warriors, you can tune into that as well. A decent enough card that Danny is putting on as well, as always, and lots of good matchups on that too. Want to quickly run through a couple of the top ones there before we wrap it up?
Yeah, look, I think we'll cover this in a lot more depth when in the aftermath of it. It's a fantastic card. 2 pro fights: Marco Bojcuk versus Youssef Ukachin, who's stepping up to make his pro debut on short notice, which incredible. I love that. Jack Hoare, they're getting Paulo Barbosa. No idea anything about him, but he's coming in for the main event, and 2 pro fights topped off is fantastic. The featherweight title fight between Emmett Core and Michael Shields is an absolute barn burner. Keane McCartan, Paul Nolan, Kieran Maskey versus Blaine McGill is going to be an absolute cracker as well, and Matthew O'Rourke against Abdul Malik Subrayev. It's a really high level card, and hats off to Danny Core and all the team over there that put this one together, because they've left no stone unturned. They really wanted to put on a good card, and they have. So I'm buzzing to watch it, and I'm buzzing to cover it afterwards as well, because we can't give it as much detail this time, but next time around next podcast we'll be able to discuss it in a lot more depth. It's brilliant.
We definitely discussed that card and the upcoming Cage Warriors 188 card, a monster card in the RDS arena. Really looking forward to that. The lads will be underground there. There'll be lots of interviews and coverage coming from the RDS. Check it out on SevereMMA YouTube channel. And all is left for us to do is for Caoilte to see us out.
Since we got no Irish with Max, it's all down to... Well, it's down to me today. So
how could you cut me like that, Caoilte?
Not even a Cunis Boher can't even ban you. But Garry Míle Maithfigh Fugus Longa Fall.